Good evening. It is now 6:01. We'll go ahead and get started this evening. Please remember when you are speaking, please be sure to unmute your mic so you can be heard on the live broadcast. The public who did not register in advance can watch on the live broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. For live Spanish translation services, please dial 720-386-9023 and use the code 104091 *.
I will now call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, will the staff please perform a roll call?
Acting Chair Bitloff.
Present.
Commissioner Japp.
Present.
Commissioner Eggleston.
Present.
Commissioner Kamak. And Commissioner Schechter.
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
Can I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Van Dyke?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Can we have a vote?
Second, here.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah.
yes, I thought I heard a second. So I have a first and a second. Can I have a vote?
Commissioner Bitloff.
Yes.
Commissioner Japp.
Yes.
Commissioner Eggleston. Commissioner Kamak. Sure. Commissioner Schechter.
Yes.
Next, we'll move to the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the February 6th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Please, is there any discussion on the agenda or the minutes from the last meeting? Hearing none, please open electronic voting.
Sorry, can we get those pushed again?
The results are 5 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstains. Motion passes. We will now begin the public hearing portion of the meeting, and I will open the public hearing for the first case. Will the Deputy City Attorney please introduce the case?
Good evening and happy Super Tuesday. Tonight's first case is CUP 23-0001. Tom Wood, on behalf of Rocky Mountain Recycling Incorporated, is requesting a conditional use permit to allow a recycling facility located at 6425 Brighton Boulevard, zoned I3, heavy intensity industrial, consisting of approximately 1.23 acres. Ms. Kathleen Taylor will be presenting the case on behalf of the city this evening.
Sorry about that. It's my first time. I'm Kathleen Taylor, a new senior planner with the city, and I'm here to present the case CUP 23-001, conditional use permit for Rocky Mountain Recycling. First, you'll see a vicinity map. The area outlined in yellow is the subject property that we're referring to, and the portions that are in hatched orange, that is the existing current Rocky Mountain Recycling facilities, which are occupied on both the east and west sides of Brighton Boulevard. The portion you see in orange is 14.5 acres. And as Mr. Hayter mentioned, the subject property is 1.23 acres. In summary, this is a conditional use permit to expand the recycling facilities that already exist at Rocky Mountain. Those facilities already have approved conditional use permits in order to operate within the zone. The current zoning is I3 heavy intensity industrial district, and the future land use designation is industrial/distribution. This is a zoning map. The area in the black hatch is the subject property that we're looking at. It is surrounded by I3 zone, and you can take a look there on the map. This is a zoom in of our comprehensive land use plan. The circle area is the subject area. It has both industrial distribution and general industrial, both of those land use designations. Rocky Mountain Recycling has been in business since 1936. They've been in Commerce City for a lot of years. They recycle a variety of materials, and those include stainless steel, copper, rebar, aluminum, brass, iron, quite a number of things. The facility provides services not only to Commerce City, but the state and surrounding areas outside our state. The expansion is for 1.23 acres. If approved, it will increase the operations area by 8.5%. The applicant also has on file a plat consolidation. So if the conditional use permit were to be approved, they would consolidate this property with the adjacent lot to the north. This is the site plan. You see in yellow the access through the site. And currently, they have only the access to the north there off of Brighton Boulevard, and this will allow through connectivity all throughout the site, makes it better for the fire trucks to be able to drive right through and also to function their business. There was a neighborhood meeting held, and it was held in November. There was one attendee from the public, a local business owner. There were no public comments received. The proposed use, it's consistent with the zone. The development review team has reviewed this case. There are no outstanding issues. There is sufficient evidence to demonstrate that the conditional use permit meets the approval criteria found in our land use development code with 2 conditions. The very first condition is actually taken from the conditional use permits that were granted for the other areas of Rocky Mountain Recycling. And it states the hours of operation shall be limited to be between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. with no operation of large machinery or movement of heavy materials after 9 p.m. The second recommended condition is that screening of at least 6 feet in height shall be installed along the Brighton Boulevard frontage. There are a number of case considerations, the first one being that it's consistency with the comprehensive plan goals and objectives. The facility would provide additional jobs to the community. Our E3 division at the city, which is Energy, Equity, and Environmental Division, they find it consistent with their sustainability action plan. Now, there is a potential for noise from this operation to impact the surrounding properties. And I'll skip to the very last one there, which it mentions city staff did reach out to the Commerce City Police Department as well as Adams County Sheriff's Office. They went back 2 years and there were no noise complaints for the property that was filed with them. We'll pop back up there. The proposed condition limiting the hours of operation, it provides consistency with the existing facilities. This here is the conditional use criteria that the applicant must demonstrate compliance with in order to be approved for the conditional use permit. The applicant is present to speak on behalf of this request, to answer any questions. Staff is also available to answer questions.
At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant forward to the podium to present. Hello, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Tom Wood, I'm representing Rocky Mountain Recycling at 6425 Brighton Boulevard in Commerce City. We also have one of our owners present here tonight. Larry is one of the owners of the facility, just to show our interest in this program. As Kathleen has pointed out, we are requesting a continuing use permit for the site. Let me see if I can make the next
I
slide.
do apologize. I'm trying to open Tom's presentation here.
Great, thank you. There we go.
There, finally, we're in business. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. So we have been in business here in Commerce City for a long, long time, more than 50 years. We provide recycling not only for Commerce City, but all of Colorado and some of the surrounding states. We actually process millions of tons of material, all of which is being diverted from the landfill and being recycled. We employ nearly 80 people. Most of them are local residents. And we're expanding our operations to make them more sustainable, safer, and environmentally friendly. This is a map that you saw earlier. It shows the adjacent parcel of about an acre or so. This parcel has been inactive for quite some time, and it's right next to our existing operations, so it's an ideal place for us to expand to. It also gives us there's an existing entrance off of Brighton Boulevard. Our plan is to upgrade that entrance, to put in a concrete driveway and a new gate. This also allows the fire department, emergency responders to enter the site in a more efficient manner. And we show the deeded easement there for their access. It also allows us to separate traffic a little bit. We'll be able to run the larger trucks through this new entrance. The smaller vehicles go through the existing entrance on just north of this. It separates the vehicles and it makes for a much more efficient and much more safe operation at the site. We have an existing fence along the Brighton Boulevard. Our plan is to extend that fence along the new property and to extend the same operating conditions that we have from the existing site to this new site. The fence is really a unique feature along Brighton Boulevard, a very industrial area. We have been able to avoid the horizontal top of the fence. We don't have chain link, we don't have barbed wire. We've chosen a Rocky Mountain design. We have a special trellis feature that has trumpet vines, and you can see the colors. I only wish they would bloom a little bit longer, but it is a very xeriscape type system. It has low water drip irrigation. It provides a very safe and secure noise and dust barrier. We certainly do have people that want to come over the fence to maybe steal some of the metal. And barbed wire is really a problem because you could injure somebody who might inadvertently come over your fence. So our idea was to avoid any barbed wire. Yes, you can go over the fence, but it is not easy to do. So it does provide a lot of security and safety for those people who might want to venture over there. And we don't have junkyard dogs anymore. We do have high-tech cameras and much better security. So we discourage people from theft. But it is a vibrant operation. It's very important, I think, to the Commerce City community, and we appreciate your consideration of our request. Thank you.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant or staff at this time? Seeing none, do members of the public wish to provide comments on this case? And thank you, Mr. Wood, for your presentation. Is there anyone attending virtually tonight who wishes to speak?
Not for this case.
All right. At this time, I will now close the public hearing for this case. Can I have a motion on this case?
Mr. Chairman, I move the Planning Commission enter a finding that the requested conditional use permit for the property located at 6425 Brighton Boulevard, contained in case CUP 23-0001, meets the criteria of the Land Development Code, and based upon such finding, recommend the City Council approve the conditional use permit.
Do we have a second? Is there any additional discussion on the case or the motion? Seeing none, please open electronic voting.
I'm sorry, let's do that again. Commissioner Schechter?
The results are 5 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstains. Congratulations to the applicant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good evening. I will now open the public hearing for the next case and ask the Deputy City Attorney to please introduce the case and staff presenting.
The second matter this evening has been given case number CUP 23-0002. Tetra Tech, on behalf of Denver Water, is requesting a permit for a major extension of existing domestic water and sewage treatment systems, specifically for a water line approximately 1.5 miles in length and located approximately within E470 and East 96th Avenue right-of-way. Presenting the case on the behalf of the city this evening is Dalton Guerra.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Dalton Guerra. I'm a city planner with the Commerce City Planning Division. Tonight we have a permit for a major extension of a domestic water system. First thing we want to point out is the CUP record number does not actually indicate that this is a conditional use permit. This is not a conditional use permit. This is a permit for a matter of state interest as it relates to a major extension of a domestic water system. So that record number is purely for tracking and for record keeping. It does not indicate that this is a conditional use permit case. Throughout the presentation and in the staff report in the packet, you may see reference to a 1041 permit. This is a reference to a House bill that was approved that allowed local governments to identify, designate, and regulate activities of state interest. It's commonly referred to as 1041 powers, and as such will be referred to occasionally as a 1041 permit. So any mention of a 1041 permit throughout the packet in any presentations is referencing a process outlined in Chapter 22 of the Municipal Code. The location of this water line is within E470 and East 96th Avenue right-of-way. It'd be the installation of a water line to transport potable water below grade. The length of the line within Commerce City is 1.5 miles, and the owner and operator of this water line is Denver Water. This is a quick look at the route of the line in blue. This is just the section that's within Commerce City. You can see to the bottom left of the screen, there's a pump station, existing pump station there. That is the end of the line. And it extends outwards, going north and east towards the airport for the rest of the line. But just this 1.5 mile section is what is under consideration for this permit. This is a look down 96th Avenue, which is the majority of the route. It's 2 lanes and not much around it currently. A little background: the intent of the line is to transport potable water from the airport to that existing pump station, and from that pump station, the water would then be serviced to the South Metro Water Supply Authority, and that happens because the City of Denver and City of Aurora can sell their excess water to South Metro as part of a regional partnership and agreement. This is a quick look at the overall water line route. You'll notice to the top of the screen, that's the start of it in Denver International Airport. and it meanders through to the west until it hits 96th Avenue and is then in Commerce City, all the way to the existing pump station. So again, to reiterate that only the 1.5 mile section within Commerce City, as outlined in this diagram in blue, is under consideration for this permit. The DRT reviewed this project. There are no outstanding comments or objections to the proposed water line, and there was sufficient evidence in the record to demonstrate that the proposal meets the Municipal Code Section 22-30 and 22-66, subject to 5 proposed conditions. The first condition states that any alterations to the water line will require an amendment to this permit. Number 2 is that the water line shall transport potable water only. Number 3 is for any damage they may cause during construction or maintenance will be the responsibility of the owner to repair. And number 4, that if the water line is ever discontinued, they are required to notify the Commerce City Public Works Department. And number 5, that the relocation of the water line as a result of expansion of East 96th Avenue in the future will be the responsibility of the owner. And the owner being the owner and operator of the water line, which is Denver Water. Some considerations: the permit is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Again, just reiterating that the permit is only considering the 1.5 mile section of the total 6 mile long water line. The water line will serve the Denver Metro at large. There's potential for Commerce City to utilize the water line route in the future by co-locating with our water district, can co-locate their water lines with this route. And due to location within the right-of-way, there are no negative impacts anticipated to the surrounding area. There are 20 approval criteria. If you want to go over any of them specifically, we would be happy to go do that. They're listed here in the PowerPoint for you. And that is the conclusion of our presentation. The applicant is also here with a presentation to speak and answer questions.
At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant forward to the podium to present. Please state your name and address for the record.
Is this on? My name is Dan Phipps. Address is 1560 Broadway, Denver, Colorado. So Dalton covered most of what I wanted to highlight in my presentation, so I'll try to be quick for everyone's time. But this is a 6 mile pipeline. 1.5 miles are within Commerce City. The goal of this project is to connect Denver Water's system at DIA to the City of Aurora's Prairie Water System down on the southwest site. This is part of a larger partnership called WISE, which is the Water Infrastructure and Supply Efficiency Partnership. The benefit of this partnership is WISE uses excess capacity and available return flows between Aurora and Denver Water to create a new water supply that reduces the 10 metro districts in South Metro reliance on non-renewable groundwater and other sources to improve drought resiliency. And this partnership utilizes approximately $800 million worth of existing infrastructure and builds about $120 million of new infrastructure to share this water resource, as we all know is critical in Colorado. Commerce City and WISE have some shared sustainability goals. As mentioned before, we are proactively trying to manage our water resources and distribute those sources across the Denver metro area, as opposed to tapping into non-renewable sources. We're also trying to improve water quality by conveying water from DIA south to Aurora's Prairie Water's pump station to improve water quality and reduce water age. This is the overall pipeline alignment. As you saw previously, what is in the blue is what is actually located inside of Commerce City. And it really goes through 3 different spots. Aurora's Prairie Water's pump station site, which is owned by Aurora, was a partner on this project. It goes through the E470 right-of-way and then along the East 96 right-of-way. The first spot is the pump station. We'll be putting in a new building on this site to connect this pipeline for the valving and control of the new potable water. Then we're going to have an E470 crossing. This is going to be a trenchless bore located here and also shown on the aerial on the right. This is going to be a 48-inch minimum steel boring. It's a trenchless installation to go under E470, and it is actually going to be a shared boring between Denver Water's new potable water line and a 16-inch South Adams County Water and Sanitation District pipeline. So we're partnering with South Adams County to kind of reduce the amount of cost and infrastructure that needs to go under E470. As you can see, we're going to have the 18-inch pipeline on the left and their 16-inch pipeline on the right. This really provides a significant benefit to South Adams County Water and Sanitation District as well as Commerce City residents by connecting these two developments on the west and east side of E470. It's a shared boring for $1.7 million that reduces costs to South Adams County's ratepayers. The contractor's been selected. It's going to be JHL Constructors, so you'll see them out there. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, could you repeat what you just said about it reducing for South Adams?
Yeah,
Cost or volume or what?
what it is because it's a joint venture, it's a shared cost between Denver Water and South Adams County Water and Sanitation District. So it's an overall reduction in their capital cost, which then gets passed
Why,
on to the ratepayers.
why would they want to share that?
Oh, because the boring is very expensive. It's a special kind of construction.
I understand that, but why do they need to bore? Why do they need to go across the road?
What does South Adams County need to cross the
Right.
road? Oh, because, sorry, I wasn't clear on that. What's shown on the west side is the existing South Adams County Water and Sanitation District infrastructure. That's in the solid blue line. So they have water supplies to the Legato development, but there is also proposed development coming in on the east side. So by sharing this boring with Denver Water, they're going to be able to make that connection over to the east side and provide water to the Commerce City residents on the
So
east.
that's in anticipation of the development on the east side of 470 ultimately, which is part of Commerce City.
Correct.
And if I could interject one moment, and I would ask the commissioners to hold their questions until the end of the presentation and collect them, and we'll ask questions collectively. Thank you.
So as I mentioned, JHL has been selected to be the construction contractor on site. The schedule for the project is they were selected in January. Obviously, we're here for the Planning Commission now. Hope to go in front of City Council in April and then get our notice to proceed to do construction between April and March of next year. That is for the entire project, the entire 6 miles. When we will be in Commerce City is going to be dependent on the final schedule developed by the contractor. Now we're ready for questions.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Seeing none, yeah, thank you very much for your presentation and to staff.
Thanks.
Do any members of the public wish to provide comments on this case? Seeing none, is there anyone attending virtually tonight who wishes to speak?
Not for this case.
Okay. At this time, I will now close public hearing for this case. Can I have a motion on this case?
Garrett, I have a question
Yes.
for the planning for Dalton.
So just for clarity, are we reopening the public hearing then? Because the questions typically happen during public hearing. So I heard the chair close the public hearing.
We didn't have a chance to talk.
I believe I did ask the commissioners if we had any questions for the staff. So
So-
we can reopen the public hearing.
It
for
sounds
this
like
case.
it sounds like a motion and a second and a quick voice vote to reopen the public hearing would be appropriate.
Can we have a motion to reopen the hearing?
So moved.
And a second? Can we have a voice vote for the motion?
Commissioner Bitloff?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeff?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggleston? Commissioner Kamak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schechter?
Yes.
We may now proceed the public hearing portion. And Commissioner Comack for,
I have a question for our planning department. So is this a conditional use or is not, or according to the 1041 powers, I don't think we really need a conditional use. Tell me what, you said that it wasn't when you started your your presentation, but what we have in front of us says it is. So where are we going with this? Explain to me.
Sure thing. Thank you for the question, Commissioner. This is not a conditional use permit, for clarification. It is a permit that is processed through the provisions set out in Municipal Code Chapter 22.
Right.
There is no conditional use permit required, and this is not itself a conditional use permit approval.
Why does it say conditional use on our schedule then?
Well, I'm going to invite our planning manager, Jennifer Jones, up here because it looks like our mics are having some issues.
Sorry, our microphone over there is not working. Just to clarify, a 1041 permit outlined in Chapter 22 is not something that the city processes very often. We don't have a lot of matters of state interest come through the process. Therefore, we don't have a designated process or numbering system for a 1041 or matter of state interest permit. It was determined that something close would be a conditional use permit, so we use that nomenclature. The report actually, I believe, just says permit report. So we're asking you to work with us just a little bit on the naming. We don't have, again, because we haven't processed something like this in at least 5 to 7 years that I'm aware of. It's a fairly rare. Something else that would fall into a matter of state interest would be something like the location or alignment of a major highway. So not something we see too often. So that's why you see this was the closest thing, but it is certainly not a conditional use permit. We're not using the conditional use permit criteria. We are using the criteria outlined in Chapter 22.
So, and I think we crossed this path before when we approved that water line that I think is under construction right now, you know, that big, long one. Mr. Attorney, tell us where we stand on this. I support this 100%, but I want to make sure that legally we do it the right way and the right words are used so we don't have a speed bump come up at a later date.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can entirely understand your question, but I'll just point out that provided in the packet was an overview of the approval criteria set forth in Chapter 22 of the Municipal Code, both at subsection 30 and subsection 66 for this particular use as well. And that does appear in your packet, and this packet doesn't really have like page numbers per se, but that does appear in front of you. And really, what we're talking about is a recommendation of approval of the existing domestic, extension of a existing domestic water line. And that's where this falls within the Chapter 22 of the Municipal Code.
Is it written correctly?
In terms of the like, for example, the draft resolution that's before you, yes.
Okay.
Any additional questions? So, Mr. Hayter, just as a point of order, do I
Sure.
need to call for public comments again on this
No.
commentary? Okay. So at this time, I will now close the public hearing for this case. Can I get a motion for this case?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move the Planning Commission enter a finding that the requested permit for the property located at 19900 East 96th Avenue within E470 and East 96th Avenue right-of-way contained in case CUP 23-0002 meets the criteria of the municipal code, and based upon such finding, recommend that the city council approve the permit.
Do we have a second? Is there any additional discussion? Please open electronic voting. The motion passes with 5 yeses, 0 noes, and 0 abstain. I'd like to thank Mr. Phipps and the applicant team for their presentation and the successful motion. I will now open the public hearing for the next case and ask the Deputy City Attorney to please introduce the case and staff presenting.
The next case this evening is PUDA 23-0002, Terracina Design on behalf of 18494 104th LLC is requesting approval of the Reunion PUD Zone Document Amendment Number 6 to modify allowed uses, including the addition of marijuana uses, creating setback requirements for a single medical marijuana center and retail marijuana store, and institute new and modified development standards for the 1.48 acre lot located at 18494 East 104th Avenue. Presenting the case on behalf of the city this evening is Mike Rosso.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mike Rosso, and I am a city planner with Commerce City. Why is it not? Not sure why this is not presenting.
Let's see. I don't even know where that is.
Sorry, technical difficulties. All right. So yes, this is a proposed PUD amendment, number 6 to the Reunion PUD, case number PUDA 23-0002. So the specific request is approval of the Reunion PUD zone document, amendment number 6, to modify allowed uses, including the addition of marijuana uses, create setback requirements for a single medical marijuana center and retail marijuana store, and institute new and modified development standards for the 1.48 acre lot. So here we have the vicinity map. As you can see, this is indeed surrounded by the Reunion PUD. And to the south of the site is a parcel zoned agriculture, which is actually a power line easement. Here we have the future land use plan. You can see the site circled in red. It is designated as commercial use. And here we have the aerial. You can see that the site is currently vacant, surrounded by various commercial uses. It's just some current conditions on the site. Again, it is vacant. So yes, the site is undeveloped currently. It's part of Parcel 4F of the Reunion PUD Amendment Number 1, which designates it as mixed use. This PUD amendment proposes to substantially reduce the number of uses on the property, removing all the current residential uses that are allowed and removing several more intense commercial uses. If you look in your report, you can actually see a side-by-side at the end of the report, a side-by-side list of all of the currently allowed uses, as well as the proposed allowed uses on the site. If this PUD amendment were approved, it would only apply to this specific lot, and not the entirety of the Reunion PUD. Regarding the proposed marijuana use, it would be a single tenant space with a maximum of 2,500 square feet. It would be a combined medical marijuana center and retail marijuana store. Currently, the marijuana use is prohibited because there are currently residential uses allowed on this property and because there are other properties within 1,000 feet that are zoned for various zonings that allow residential uses. This PD amendment proposes a 500-foot distancing requirement from existing residential uses with no distancing requirement proposed for properties that have zonings that allow residential but do not currently contain residential uses. All of the other land development code setback requirements for marijuana use would be met with this proposal. There is a PUD development permit under review for the site for one commercial building, approximately 1,200 square feet, with spaces for up to 5 individual tenants. One of those would be space reserved for a restaurant, and the other known quantity would be the space reserved for their medical marijuana and retail marijuana store. The PUD development permit does currently propose 30% more parking than is required to hopefully alleviate any sort of parking issues that may exist on the site given the proposed development. This PUD amendment would also propose several development standards that exceed or are brand new in regards to the land development code, including architectural, site design, and sustainability standards. There was a neighborhood meeting conducted on January 24th. The applicants notified property owners in a 2,500-foot radius. Approximately 32 individuals attended the meeting. The vast majority were either neutral or in favor of the request, with 2 couples voicing opposition to the proposal. So the next slides are just going to kind of go over each sheet of the PUD amendment in a little bit more detail. So this is the first sheet of the PUD amendment. So that sheet is the cover sheet. They, in that sheet, discuss the project intent. They clarify that the site is currently vacant, zoned PUD, mixed use, and they confirm that if the site were developed, it would be done in one phase. This is the second sheet of the PUD amendment. As you can see, I'll go back to it. It is a simple site map with the potential access points labeled. The commercial development standards table is also listed on that sheet, including various development standards for the site. This is the third sheet. This sheet includes the proposed use table, which lists all the allowed uses that they're proposing on the site. Anything that is not listed on this table would be prohibited. And with their proposed uses, they are again proposing to remove all the currently allowed residential uses, as well as some of those more intensive commercial uses like gas stations, car washes, auto repair shops. Again, you can refer back to that figure in your zone document report for that side-by-side comparison of the uses. The sheet also has a few notes listed at the bottom. First one would be that the development shall have at least 2,000 square feet allocated to a restaurant use. Second note is that a liquor store would only be permitted if no marijuana use were to exist on the site. The third note states that only one combined medical retail marijuana store would be allowed on the site, and then that use is limited to 2,500 square feet. And again, anything not listed in this table would be prohibited. So this is the final sheet of the PUD amendment. There's a lot on this sheet, but we can start with the marijuana use standards. They list all of the locational restrictions. Again, they're proposing that 500-foot minimum distancing from any existing residential use with no distancing requirement from uses that allow, or zonings that allow residential uses but do not currently contain residential uses. And again, all of the other distancing requirements listed on this sheet are in conformance with our land development code. All advertising, signage, and design standards on the sheet that are listed comply with current LDC requirements for marijuana use. And all the prohibitions that they list on this sheet regarding the marijuana use complies with the land development code as well. So kind of continuing on with the different standards on the sheet, the additional standards that I kind of made reference to earlier with sustainability, site requirements, and gathering space requirements, they have provided a list of several different elements from which they need to choose a minimum of 5 for each one of those standards to comply with their proposed PUD amendment. And regarding architecture, it is similar. So they have some standards that they need to choose 5 elements from. In addition to that, they are they're required themselves to provide a highly visible customer entrance and architectural treatments for walls exceeding 65 feet in length, and then different requirements based on whether they face a street or they face internally. They have a fenestration requirement, which would be like windows and doors, faux windows, which exceeds the current LDC requirement for similar development. And any other architectural standards would comply with the Land Development Code. Moving on to road network impacts, this site is located at the intersection of 2 principal arterials, which is East 104th and Tower Road. The proposed development would comply with the city's transportation master plan by not providing any new connections to East 104th or Tower Road, as the master plan does state that you should limit or prohibit individual access points onto these arterials. Instead, access to the site will be from an internal existing private drive. The city's Development Review Engineering Division reviewed this PUD amendment request, and they had no concerns. So the proposed zone change PUD amendment has been reviewed by all relevant DRT agencies, and there are no outstanding issues. And there is sufficient evidence in the record to demonstrate the proposal meets the PUD zone document approval criteria and Municipal Code Section 21-3251, subsection 3. Some considerations for your discussion. The PUD amendment would bring the site into greater consistency with the comprehensive plan by removing those currently allowed residential uses. The amendment proposes many design, architectural, and sustainability standards, which go above and beyond what is currently required by the LDC. It proposes a pared-down list of allowed uses. It would prohibit several more intensive commercial uses, as mentioned before, regarding some things like car washes, auto repair shops, gas stations. It would guarantee that 2,000 square feet of space would be set aside for restaurant use. It would allow the medical marijuana center and retail marijuana store to be developed on the site with a maximum of 2,500 square feet. Currently, the city only has marijuana retail facilities located south of East 72nd Street or East 72nd Avenue. And it would result in the development of the site, which till this time has remained vacant. And this is a list of all the approval criteria. And if you would like to get into any of these in more detail, I have several slides at the end of this presentation that go into responding to each one of these. And with that, I can close my presentation. The applicant is present and prepared to speak on behalf of their request and answer any questions. Staff is also available to answer any questions after the applicant's presentation.
So we'll hold questions for staff at this time, and I would like to call the applicant forward if you'd like to make a presentation. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Katie Benz with Terracina Design, 10200 East Girard Avenue in Denver. I'm just up here to say hi and introduce you to the co-applicant, Josh Riggs.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Josh Riggs. I live at 22464 East Weaver Drive in Aurora, Colorado. I'd like to first start by just saying thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. This project has been a dream of ours for quite some time. It's been a long process, and so it's exciting to be here. And as Mike mentioned, we're here seeking this PUD amendment to open a dispensary and partner with the,
Having additional technical issues getting the presentation up. I'll force it. There we go. All right. I think we got it working.
All right, thank you. So as I was saying, we're here tonight to seek this PUD amendment to open a dispensary in the Reunion area in partnership with the landowners and developers to bring a multi-unit commercial building to that corner on 104th and Tower. Tonight, I want to talk just a little bit about our business and why we think that we'll be great corporate citizens and neighbors to the community. Our commitment is clear at Social Cannabis. We prioritize the safety and well-being of our customers and our neighbors. We have a wealth of experience in the industry. We've honed our craft through a number of years, and along with this experience has come a more deep understanding of our responsibility to run these businesses. So we are conscious of some of the concerns of neighbors, and we believe that the most important thing is for us to have open dialogue and open conversations. So at many of the other stores that we've opened, and currently we have 4 locations, one in Golden, one in Louisville, one in the Montbello neighborhood, and one in North Denver. At all of those locations, through the application process, we've done a lot of community outreach. We have good neighbor agreements in place where we do sit down with our neighbors and figure out what their biggest concerns are. We usually come up with things like 24-hour response time to any concerns that a neighbor might have, guidelines about loitering and making sure that the property, remains clean and safe. So we have a lot of experience doing that, and this is the type of business that we want to bring here to Reunion. I'm not going to spend a lot of time reading through all of this presentation. I just want to hit some of the highlights. We do believe that our process starts with design, and that the only way to create a truly safe dispensary and business is by starting with that design process. We take security, we put security at the forefront of every decision that we make, whether it's the layout of the store, the way that we build our check-in lobbies, check-in windows, 5-point locking doors, 24-hour live monitoring service, things like that. So as we get into these types of projects, that's always top of mind for us. How do we make this space functional, safe, and also elegant, right? We want it to fit in with the neighborhood. And as Mike pointed out, we've spent a lot of time trying to build this development or the plans for this development in a way that goes well beyond the standard design requirements. Right? We want to bring something to this neighborhood that gets people excited. And as we've done more and more outreach at the community open house, and as we've spent time speaking with other neighbors, we know that a lot of people are excited about the possibility of having something like this on that corner of 104th and Tower. This is a quick project overview. One thing that I do want to point out is projected tax revenue for the city. We've been in this industry a long time. Commerce City is losing a lot of tax revenue to Denver because there's nothing in that neighborhood. A lot of people and almost everybody from that side of town are driving into Denver, whether it's to that Live Well or to that Native Roots that's over on Tower Road, a little bit further south. So our estimates, based off of our understanding of the business that those 2 stores are doing, is that somewhere between $500,000 and $700,000 a year in tax revenue for Commerce City. We also would plan to hire 15 to 20 full-time employees, high-paying jobs, benefits. A lot of our entry-level employees are making $50,000+ a year. So another great reason why this would be a good addition to the community. One of the things that we think sets us apart is our focus on community outreach. We'll talk about this a few slides down, but we have created something called the Be Social campaign. We partner with a number of our vendors Every time we sell a unit of their product, they donate 25 cents, we donate 25 cents. To date, we've donated over $18,000, and that's just in the last about year and a half. We do that with local community organizations. This quarter, we're working with a group called Chanda in the Golden area. But as we look to put roots down in Commerce City, we look forward to building relationships here. We just recently started engaging in conversations with Cultivando and are in talks with them on how we can partner with them and utilize not only the Be Social program, but our experience to find ways to help, right? And so part of this process for us is having the conversations and figuring out where we can make a difference. Here are a couple of renderings of the project. Again, as you can see, we really want this to be a standout building. We want it to be something that excites people, a place where people want to hang out. We've taken a lot of time to incorporate enhanced design features, specifically around sustainability. We will bring electric vehicle charging stations to the parking lot, bike racks, native plants, make sure it's walkable, water quality treatment on site. We're going to do everything we can to be as sustainable as possible, but at least 1 or 2 car charging stations. Here's some additional information on the plans for sustainability. Common gathering space. And some information about our security measures. So one of the biggest concerns that I think we hear from people that are opposed or concerned about a dispensary coming into any neighborhood is, will it be safe? And we take every step possible to make sure that that's the case. Talked a little bit about our customized security solutions, our partnerships with local law enforcement. There is a police substation right by this proposed location. I think that's an advantage for us. We also implement a 24-hour live monitoring service where we have a third-party company that's consistently monitoring our exterior cameras. And if anything does happen, they are very quick to respond. Within a minute or 2, we know that there's an issue and we're dealing with it. Since we've put that live monitoring in place at all of our other locations, we've had almost 0 issues. And the one issue that we were having, I just want to be clear, is that typically we would see attempted break-ins after hours. Usually nothing during the day or during normal business hours, but when we were closed, people would try to break in. This has completely solved that problem. Again, we are completely transparent with our compliance, with our security processes and procedures, and we've built those in a way that I think has been really effective. We also want to make sure that the space looks and feels like somewhere, a business that you'd want in the neighborhood, right? So integration into design, warmth and inclusivity. We're Colorado natives, so we try to keep our design a little bit more Colorado themed. We purposely avoid maybe what you'd consider stereotypical dispensary design, colors and materials. And at the end of the day, I think you can see just from the renderings that are proposed for this project that it will meet or exceed those standards. Again, we listen to the community. Your concerns are our concerns. We're family people first. We have children, and we understand how important it is to keep marijuana out of the hands of people under the age of 21. We have a flawless compliance record, 100%. We've never had an issue with an underage purchase. And we have rigorous training guides. We use the same ID scanners that they use at TSA. And at the end of the day, I just want to acknowledge that for us, this is one of the most important parts of our business. Last slide here. We do regular community outreach. Again, I talked about those community meetings, quarterly good neighbor meetings, 24-hour response times, and collaboration with a lot of local organizations. I think you'll see in the packet that we submitted that we have numerous letters of support from registered neighborhood organizations, from local nonprofits, and other community leaders. We have built that relationship and that trust by putting our money where our mouth is, and by building, by building that trust one community at a time. Also, thousands of 5-star customer reviews. We're good at what we do, and we really look forward to having this opportunity here in Commerce City. This is our Be Social community slide. Again, that's how much we've donated in the last year and a half, and we do that because it's really important to us. Thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Riggs. Before you leave the podium, do any of the commissioners have any question for Mr. Riggs or for staff?
Yeah, Mr. Riggs, good presentation, and frankly, I support the kind of business that you're working in, and think that there is a place for it. I do have a question. Have you looked at or considered any other location other than this in the Reunion area?
We have looked and looked and looked for what feels like 2 years, maybe longer. And this is the first viable location that we found, mostly because of our partnership with the developer and the landowner. A lot of the other landowners and vacant lot development opportunities are not interested in participating in a development like this with us.
Why?
Federal fund, lending from banks. Sometimes these bigger companies, especially the land developers, they have different restrictions and requirements. There's still, it's still hard. It's still challenging for us to find locations to operate.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schechter.
Yeah, 1 second here. Try to press the on button. Okay, I'll speak loudly. Would it be possible for you to go back to the slide showing the corner view? Is
Sure.
that possible?
I say sure, but it's up to Mike, I think.
Showing the corner of 104th and Tower. Because that looked beautiful. And so, like this, yeah, I guess that's it. So, but on the map, it says, oh, this is like this little tiny kingdom owned by Shea Homes. And so I'm just wondering about the status of that and do you know anything about that?
I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't. I mean, this location's right adjacent to the Starbucks,
Yeah.
right? But in terms of the other developments, I don't know a lot about where they're at.
The little arc piece is owned by Shea. I don't know, maybe someone from the city. Yeah, oh, you're muted too, huh?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. The microphones are a challenge tonight.
Oh, they're back on, okay.
Yes, sir. It is a portion reserved for signage.
Okay,
There's a similar on the other side that's still owned by Shea.
Okay.
So that is separate from the piece of property that's being discussed tonight, but we recognize that it is still there and it's reserved for signage.
because it'd be nice if it turns out to look good and not just be like a dirt little arc, right? That's all, I'm just wondering.
Oh, of course. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
That was one question. Let's see. I had a comment. I'm very happy to see the buildings out toward the street and the parking lots in, and I realize that this is all mock-up and this is all very early, but that kind of thing really helps create nice walkable sidewalks. Something that we do often to our cities, which I think is a bad thing. We have sidewalks alongside huge parking lots, and which discourages people and makes things less safe. So I think this is pretty nice. The one final question I had, this might be more for our attorney, is this space here being zoned and allowed for a restaurant. I think it would be great if it would allow live music And I've gotten that feeling from other people in Reunion, a place for adults, anything from, you know, just like acoustic music, it's like a jazz band, to amplified music. Do you know, I was wondering, what is the regulatory regime? And is that covered, or, yeah?
I'm going to allow our planning manager to address that for you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I had looked that up, and you and I had discussed it just really briefly. The regulations that I found regarding music, it really pertains to licensing only, so it's not a land use issue.
Okay.
So that would be something obviously much further down the line, and there's all sorts of parameters, so it would depend on what exactly was the situation, but it's strictly handled through licensing.
Well, good. I just want to make sure we're not ruling that out. And
No,
like
sir.
Excellent. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have another question, frankly, on this letter to Mike Rozo dated February 23rd. Towards the bottom there, it says, the inclusion of a restaurant if the marijuana use is approved. Do you have would that be owned by you and managed, or are you going to get somebody else, and has that been identified?
It's a great question, and I think, you know, the approval of this PUD amendment is really important to the project as we built it. Without it, I'm not sure that the project comes forward, and I certainly don't think it comes forward like this, right? We've really taken a lot of time to try to go above and beyond, because we do understand that we are asking for an exception here.
No, but that's not my question. I understand that. I'm an old developer. Don't hold that against me, okay?
Okay.
And I've financed a ton of things like this. My question is, if you build it, they won't necessarily come.
Okay, so.
And so, you know, and it says, if we approve marijuana, you'll put a restaurant in there. How do you know? Or is that just a gonna do?
And
I'm gonna try.
short of asking our partner Vishon to come up here, because he's been handling a lot of those conversations, there's been a ton of interest. I know he's been working with the Economic Development Department here. I saw a concept last week that seems very viable. We have had more than a handful of people. And Vishon, do you mind if I invite Vishon up? Thanks.
Hello, Commissioners. Yeah, we're working.
One moment, if you could state your name and your address for the record.
I'm Vishon Patidar from 9246 East 51st Drive, Denver, Colorado. Yeah, we're working with several restaurants, and we've actually worked with Brian with Economic Development at Commerce City, who's given us lots of contacts that he's been working with. Restaurants have been touring the area. So we've got feelers out to like First Watch and a couple of barbecue restaurants. My brother also here is looking at doing a concept of like a multiple kitchen containers with VR golf and axe throwing. So we're toying with multiple ideas, and I think we can make something happen. So.
Commissioner Japp, I think you had a question.
Sure, I think this will be for staff. I just want a little bit of clarity. I don't want to be the one that throws a wet blanket on this right now, but in criteria C1 of the approval criteria, it addresses a unique situation, confers a substantial benefit to the city. And, you know, the response there is the proposed PUD amendment addresses the unique situation of allowing a marijuana business. There's two of them within 5-minute drive of this intersection. How is that solving a unique situation?
I think that the unique situation is that currently this lot, given its proximity to other zoning districts that allow for residential use, would prohibit the use from existing here. So this would allow a use that otherwise would be prohibited to exist while still providing benefit.
Okay, thank you.
So I kind of have a follow-up question like that. I didn't notice in the presentation that you said that this is covered and supported by the comprehensive plan. And when you take a look at, and the comprehensive plan basically is the guidance the guidance principle for the Land Development Code. And in the Land Development Code, in section 214370, it says down there under D, boy, and it takes a while to figure these things out, by the way. Says that a PUD is not a device to circumvent development regulations, standards, and good planning practice. The reason that that doesn't fit in this existing zoning and land planning is because that's what was intended for it initially. And we are in the process of adjusting, coming up with a comprehensive plan that probably will be a little bit different than the one that's in existence right now, number one. And there's a good study going on, and we will be in the process of improving and coming up with an improved land development code. And quite frankly, I think that this is a way to put and again, I'm not against a marijuana distribution place, but our planning in the past has said that it doesn't fit here. And so I'm curious as to what you see as exceptional to what the plan says that we should change the plan that exists in order to do that. And specifically, taking away the 1,000-foot prevention.
If I may, I'll just add a few notes to that, which is the original Reunion PUD, right, which was the zoning for the 3,000 acres of Reunion was done back in 2001, 2-ish.
Right.
So before marijuana was on the radar.
Right.
Officially, right? So that was really when the zoning was established up here. And council has certainly discussed the issues of the location of existing marijuana facilities in the city are concentrated south of 72nd Avenue because of the zoning, right? Because of the PUDs up north were mostly all written before that came into play. So that's one piece of it. And then I would just add, secondly, that the mention of the comp plan, sort of that discussion was really focused on the commercial nature of the corner, right? It's certainly a highly visible commercial corner. And that old zoning, that old Reunion zoning technically allows for residential, right, in all of it. And so it's by taking that away that the statement was made that it's becoming more commercial, more in conformance with a retail center at this corner.
I don't disagree with what you have said. However, at this point, you're also taking out some things that would be appropriate in there. And in the discussion about the community input, I was not at the meeting. And I'm not a big social media person. My wife is. And she says that there is a tremendous amount of pushback on this from the community. So I'm not sure that the information that we've gotten here is full and complete and as accurate as other things have come up. And I'm not sure that there's a lot of people, and I rarely have anybody contact me as them knowing that I'm on the commission and have a chance to have input into this. But I have had a few people this time mention the fact that they don't want a marijuana location at the corner of Park Place and Boardwalk, which we really have three corners. We have Chambers and 120th, Chambers and 104th, and Tower and 104th. And I'm sensitive to other people's viewpoint on that, and that's why I was wondering if we couldn't find a better place for it, because quite frankly, I feel personally that it is making a change that is not consistent with the planning that exists at this point in time. If you may need to wait for a year until we have a new comp plan and a land development code that allows things like that, I support that. But I think that we should follow our guidelines at this point in time and not make a change that is inconsistent with what the basis of the planning has been in the past.
Commissioner Engelson, I think you had a question. You've been waiting patiently at the end of the dais.
First of all, looking at this use table, it seems to me like changing the PUD is going to eliminate a lot of businesses that would be able to go there if they change it to have a dispensary there. So why would an owner of a property want to change the PUD and minimize what can actually go in there? Because we're talking about 2 columns versus a half a column. So that was one of my questions. And then talking about security, I know that dispensaries have heightened security in their area, but studies have shown that in the surrounding neighborhoods, crime increases when there's a dispensary there. And so what's going to happen to the people that are living across the street in the townhomes and in Reunion and all those other areas that are right around there when the dispensary goes in?
To address your first question, we made the decision to eliminate specific uses based on feedback from the people that we've worked with at the city and from our partners at Terracina Design. And in many conversations, we've heard people say things like, if another auto parts store goes up, I'm gonna pull my hair out, right? So we didn't decide on those just without having some context about what would be more desirable from a commercial and retail standpoint. And Commissioner, without having the opportunity to review the studies that you're referring to about crime increasing, I would have to argue that you can make an argument for crime increasing for many different reasons.
You're right.
We have a lot of things happening right now, an immigrant crisis. There's a lot of things that could be leading to increased crime, but what I will tell you is that everywhere we've ever opened a dispensary and every conversation we've had with our community partners, this does not come up. When we sit down with the executive director from Montbello 2020 every couple of months, and we talk about how things are going in the neighborhood, not one time have we heard that, oh man, we've seen a spike in this crime or that crime. So I'm not sure what data points to that or how specific it is. But from a business standpoint, us opening a dispensary is very similar to a liquor store going into this place. And I'm not saying that maybe you'd be in favor of that either. But we never hear people talk about, oh, if a liquor store goes in over here, the crime goes up. So I think some of this is stigma that's still associated with the marijuana industry and potentially not really based on fact.
CU did a study in 2016 that showed that when a dispensary went in, crime in the surrounding area went up. Not where the dispensary is because they have heightened security, but in the surrounding areas, it does increase. And I'll have to tell you, my office is 1/8 of a mile from 4 dispensaries, and since those dispensaries went in, crime all along our street went up. My office has been tried to be broken into twice, and this was before COVID. So this isn't a COVID thing where people weren't working and they were out stealing cars and all of that happened. But all along that street, all the businesses were affected because the crime increased, people tried to break in, people were stealing stuff out of their lots, they were breaking into their trucks and, trailers, semi-trailers, breaking in stuff, stealing stuff out of there. And I've seen that over the past 6 or 7 years as these dispensaries continue to be built. And there's 4 of them there right in a row, and now they're putting a 5th one.
I don't know what area of town that is, and I certainly wouldn't dismiss or try to argue the point that you're making. But I would encourage you, come hang out at one of our stores for a half hour.
So then what are you going to do if you go in there to prevent crime happening from in the surrounding areas?
I just want to finish my thought, and then I'll try to
Okay.
answer that the best I can. Anybody, come hang out at our store for a half hour. Our customers look a lot like you, right? This idea that criminals come in and shop with us or somehow start to gather around the location, I don't think is accurate. And I'm sure that I could find other studies that contradict what you're saying.
Maybe so.
How will we handle crime increasing in that area? Well, first of all, again, there's a police substation right next door, right? This is a very upscale, affluent community. Is crime increasing right now over there? Would you say in the last 2 years crime has been increasing? Because I know that I live in a pretty upscale and affluent community too, in Southeast Aurora. And we have a dispensary that's probably less than a quarter of a mile from my house. My mailbox got broken into the other day. I didn't think it was because the dispensary was right there. And so I think sometimes we find ourselves in a position where it's easy to target the dispensary that opened, but again, I just don't see the evidence. And again, come hang out at one of our stores. Even just park in the parking lot. These are blue-collar, white-collar people that enjoy using cannabis. They're not criminals. They're not deviants. They're not out loitering. They don't buy the product and then go make a profit somehow on the streets. That is not accurate.
Well, and that's not what I see at the dispensaries down on 53rd in Quebec.
So perhaps
I don't
it's a
see
bigger
criminals
picture.
hanging out there. I see people going in and out and buying marijuana and leaving. Some of them do hang out there, especially at Cookies. But what the study showed was that in the surrounding area, and I'm not saying it's people that are going to the dispensaries to buy there, it just said the study said that crime does increase in the area.
The correlation to me doesn't really resonate though, because what are we saying? That the opening of a business here somehow is promoting crime?
My other question was, what other businesses are going to be going in there?
Right now, the biggest piece of that puzzle is a full-service restaurant, right? Like I said, there's some really good options that we have. I believe we have an LOI from a nail salon. And a couple of other retail businesses that we've been going back and forth with.
Sir, with all due respect, relative to the restaurant issue, we've spent, $100,000 or more on trying to find restaurants to come into this community over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
We had an advisor. We paid $50,000 a year for several years to her. She's head of involved in the Colorado Restaurant Association. She couldn't find anybody to come in. And, using the restaurant as part of the hook to get your shop in there, maybe I'm from Missouri, show me.
The show me state, sure.
Because quite frankly, a restaurant isn't going to come in here, a restaurant that is credible and sustainable, If you want to talk to Applebee's, I've got the site selector on my phone. I used to. But the fact of the matter is, my personal opinion is you can't hook your development to the dream, even a promise of a restaurant until we see, that in fact, the restaurant's first and then the rest of the thing comes. There's nothing that is preventing a restaurant to come in there right now. And the owner of the land, the reason that he's anxious to do that is it's something because he hasn't been able to get anything in there in the last 15 years.
The owner of the land is right here. And, this development is really possible because of the project that we're trying to put together.
I understand.
And would you like to speak?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah, I guess from a development perspective, dispensaries pay a higher rent, which makes it possible for us to build a higher end commercial center, because your LOIs make more, or ROIs make more sense. But with that, with those higher architecture concepts, like with the patio and a open space and that really nice corner there, we're hoping to entice, a nice restaurant and entertainment space in there.
Hope's not a great plan all the time.
I
though.
agree, that's the goal, yeah.
Been there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But that's really the biggest hook that we can have to get someone, a name brand in there.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
My opinion is that this is.
Well, a question,
Yeah, well, it's a question or a comment for us. This is a little premature until we know where the new land development code and comprehensive plan is going, because it really doesn't fit with what is in existence at this point. They're using a PUD to change the, what is in place for building, and again, the land development code says specifically that PUDs are not a device to circumvent the regulation standards and good planning practice that exists.
I do have one question just for staff, for Ms. Jones, relative to that. Since this is a planned PUD, the comprehensive plan and land development code, that the zoning in the new land development code wouldn't necessarily dictate, how would that dictate to the PUD if there was an update to the PUD in the future?
So the PUD is customized zoning, right? Essentially, that's what it is. That's what's in place now. The Reunion PUD has been amended, 5 times, I think we've seen. So that is a PUD is the zoning for the property. The only thing that sorry, it's very loud. The LDC provides regulations for items not outlined in the PUD. So and PUDs are different, right? Sometimes they talk about parking and sometimes they don't, so it defaults to the land development code. So that's really the relationship between the land development code and a PUD zoning. What's proposed before you is an amendment for this particular site only, so it wouldn't apply to the remainder of the Reunion PUD. It would only apply to this site, and it is adjusting what the PUD currently allows. So changing uses, limiting some uses, taking some out, adding some standards, adding some additional requirements. So, right, the PUD in what's being proposed is adding, while it's taking out some allowable uses, it's also adding some requirements, right, for sustainability and architecture and things like that. So they go hand in across
hand.
the board, addressing items as the applicant wants to propose. And so that's what's before you tonight.
Thank you.
Jennifer, but doing that, it also changes from 1,000 to 500 feet so that they can do that. And the 1,000-foot guideline was put in, with intent by the council after that marijuana is legal.
Yes, sir.
And that's changing significantly the concept of what's in place now for a reason.
Yeah, it is making that change. I would just add that the unique feature in this particular instance, as opposed to other places that are straight zoned, is that it's specific to the Reunion PUD that because of the broadness of the language, that the entitlement allows for commercial, residential, multifamily, right? That does not exist other places in the city. So I would just highlight that that's sort of where this is coming from is because of that unique language in the Reunion PUD that allows for residential entitlement across the board, even though when we look at the comp plan, this corner, right, this corner is colored red for commercial. And so really, absolutely, it is proposing that change to account for that. I would just want the commission to understand that is unique to the Reunion PUD as opposed to straight zoning or even some other PUDs across the city.
I have a question. Yeah, I'm wondering, do you happen to know if the liquor store also has a similar shortening of this buffer distance? Because it actually seems like it might have been, does it also have like a 500 feet buffer? And I just asked because the liquor store over there, which there is one there that already exists, it's just an extremely well-run, friendly place. It's like, apart from liquor, it's one of my favorite places to go. It's family run and it's very nice and clean and friendly. And there doesn't seem to be any problems that I know of coming from it. And if anything, to me, that's closer to actual houses right now. So just tossing it out there. That's why so that's what I was wondering. I don't know. That might be a fact that's hard to pull up, right? But I don't know.
I don't believe that liquor stores have a distancing requirement from residential.
I see.
Right, I believe well, I won't speculate to what it is. But according to our city clerk, there's not a residential distancing requirement for liquor stores.
Okay, got it. Do I really have anything else to say? No, I think I'm good, thanks.
All right, so having not heard this, from what I've heard from the other commissioners, and this is more of an inane comment, just back to the Fund PUD document. So the square footages that were outlined where we were carrying, at one point you noted a 12,000 square foot commercial building, the 2,000 square foot for the restaurant, was it?
Yeah, it's so the restaurant use space dedicated for restaurant use would have to be a minimum of 2,000 square feet.
And so is it 12,000 for the?
12,000. So it would be one building, and then in that one building there would be the potential restaurant use, the marijuana use, which would be limited to 2,500 square feet, and then a few other different various uses.
So my question is just relative to that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it wasn't clear in the information that was provided to us, and maybe you could explain that. Does this meet the FAR requirements for that particular zone of Reunion?
They would meet all the requirements, the land development requirements for that they are proposing with this PUD amendment.
So
that would apply.
Where I was going with that is just that as it's quantifying and qualifying a restaurant portion as 2,000, as that's a fixed square footage, is there any worry of implications relative to those charts that are in the original PUD?
Give me 1 second to pull up their. So for this site, they would have a minimum FAR of 15%, no maximum FAR.
Thank you.
Yeah, so they would be in compliance with that.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the commissioners? Seeing none. And thank you very, very much for your patience and time and in the presentation. And let's see. Do members of the public wish to provide comments on this case? Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, name is Mike Lempert. Address is 10783 Ventura Street. We listened to quite a bit tonight, the back and forth. I just wanted to give or put on record my vehement support for this project. I'm a resident of Reunion for nearly 8 years now. I'm a business owner. I'm a father of 2. I'm active in my community. I'm a member of the Men's League at Buffalo Run Golf Course. I feel uniquely positioned that I understand what the people around me want. And it feels as though we want this dispensary. I'm not too fluent on PUDs and all of the stuff required to get that, but I do know that this community is wildly underserved in this capacity. Somebody made mention earlier about the drive 5 minutes down the road to Live Well. And, you know, it's a little further than that, but not all dispensaries are created equal. I'm familiar with these guys' shop up in Louisville, Colorado, and it's different. It's a different feel, it's a different vibe. I'd much rather shop with a locally owned business than a big corporate conglomerate, especially in the cannabis space. It feels better to shop at the liquor store you mentioned earlier than it does to go to Total Beverage or a Total Wine or something along those lines. There's something about that feeling of a hometown that we put on the signs all around Reunion, and this kind of fits that vibe. Beyond that, I think there is a big misconception about who consumes cannabis. I am a consumer. My 80-year-old mother, who suffered a stroke and has MS, is a consumer. Most of my neighbors are consumers. Many people I work with are consumers. And as Josh mentioned earlier, you know, they look a lot like the people I'm talking to right now, sitting next to back there. You know, I just want to make sure that the voices of, you know, the people that aren't so against this because we're, you know, afraid of the crime that may or may not really exist or kind of the devil's lettuce mentality behind this stuff, you know, have a voice. I'm not sure they're going to come out and talk about it, but, you know, it's certainly important that we do so. And I want you all to know that there is a huge conglomerate of us that are really excited to have this in Reunion. Again, I think we're wildly underserved in this capacity, and you know, I personally look forward to having something like this down the street from us.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone attending virtually tonight who wishes to speak?
Yes, we have one virtual attendee.
Unmute. Hello? Hello?
Is there anyone
Hello?
attending virtually tonight who wishes to speak?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, we have one virtual attendee.
Unmute. Hello? Hello?
Is there anyone attending virtually tonight who wishes to speak?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, we have one virtual attendee.
Unmute. Hello? Hello?
Is there anyone attending virtually tonight who wishes to speak?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, Dan, we could hear you. There just seemed to be a little bit of a loop there. Go ahead and, can we try that again? Be a little bit of a loop there. Go ahead and, can we try that again?
My name is Diane Hoteling. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, Diane, and can you state your...
Diane Hoteling.
Hello, Diane, can you state your address for the record? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, Diane, and can you state your...
Diane Hoteling.
Hello, Diane, can you state your address for the record? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, Diane, can you... Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Hello?
Diane, I think you just need to
170.
mute your speaker on your side. You have your mic and your speaker on. Diane.
If we just let her talk and not speak, she'll be fine.
Diane.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, 17030. Yeah. Okay. Okay, 17030. Yeah. Okay. East 107th Avenue.
17030, yeah. Jim, turn it down. Turning this down.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me? I live at 17030 East 107th Avenue in Reunion. My husband and I have lived here for 20 years, and we have loved living here. I want to first speak about why we object to having the cannabis dispensary located at 104th and Tower. First of all, it is not true that our community was notified. Not all Reunion residents got letters of a neighborhood meeting, and I do have proof of that. And our sister and brother neighborhoods down the 104th corridor, not all of them were notified either. Someone on Nextdoor.com who was a Reunion resident posted the letter and asked us if we received the letters. And we all responded. It was a huge response that most of us did not. I even posted on our Reunion HOA community website that these had come, and did everyone get a letter? And people responded back, no. And not only no, but we don't want this. So it's been very difficult to get the information out to our neighbors, and I know they haven't all gotten it because not everyone is on Nextdoor.com. That sent alarm bells to us and my neighbors because it appeared shady that there was going to be a meeting and that we didn't know about it. And there was a lot of response back on Nextdoor.com to me. Many people who worked for this company, but it was in Brighton or not Brighton, but Denver, Montbello, and they came on so strong that I was a boomer and I didn't know what I was talking about, and that marijuana is not a drug. I want to share that I have been a school principal 5 times. I was even Monaco Elementary, District 14, Commerce City, school principal for a short while before I received an appointment by the Colorado Department of Education to work as a principal consultant for the state. So I have many experiences, including working in Denver as a principal, assistant principal, right across the street from 2 cannabis dispensaries at Valverde Elementary School. And I have many stories to share with you. But what's important is I want to share that the harassment I got for speaking up on Nextdoor.com was so severe. And this gentleman, Mike Limbert, was on this Nextdoor.com thread as well, that I had to report
Diane.
this harassment
Hello,
to
Diane.
the moderators.
Sorry to cut you off, Diane. You have reached your limit for speaking. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak, attend virtual, or is attending virtually that would like to speak?
There's not.
At this time, I would like to close, let me see, make sure I'm in the right spot. At this time, I will now close the public hearing of this case. Can I have a motion for this case, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move the Planning Commission enter a finding that the requested PUD zone document amendment for the property located at 18494 East 104th Avenue contained in case PUD A 23-0002 fails to meet the criteria of the Land Development Code, and based on such finding, recommend the City Council deny the PUD amendment.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
And I want these folks to understand that I'm not adverse to the, what's happening, and I think it would be appropriate to have your business in the community. Personally, I don't feel it's the right spot, and more importantly than that, PUDs have been used over the years to get around what the major land planning has been. And that's why we have a big deal going on about the comp plan and the land development code and all of that kind of stuff. So I hope that you're patient until we get our act together. But the fact of the matter is it doesn't meet my criteria. And, hopefully I'm representing the people in the community the way that we intended to.
Anyone else? I would just like to make one statement that just relative to that, just in the PUDs and just from what I'm hearing is that as I'm understanding that horse is out of the barn and some of these discussions weren't relative or won't be contained in the augments that would be coming in the comprehensive plan and the land development plan because the Reunion PUD is set in that, and it's its own microcosm within the city, and also that correlation isn't always causation, and some of the panic around what we're hearing. So I wanted to make that known as well. So please open electronic voting if there's no additional comment. Okay.
So we vote yes to deny, correct?
Yes, it would be to the motion that is before us, it would be a yes would be a denial of the motion. Am I correct in that, Mr. Hayter? As it was stated.
A yes vote would be supporting a recommendation to City Council to deny the application.
Thank you for the clarification. There are 3 yeses, 1 no, 1 abstain. The motion passes. I will now open up the public hearing for the last case and ask the Deputy City Attorney to please introduce the case for staff presenting.
The last
And staff presenting.
The last public hearing tonight is Z-993-24. FT-Highway 2 and Quebec LLC is requesting a zone change from AG Agricultural to I-1 Light Intensity Industrial for the property located at 8050 Rosemary, consisting of approximately 2.4 acres. Presenting the case on behalf of the city this evening is Omar Youssef.
Good evening, members of the commission. Good evening, members of the commission, Mr. Chairman. Today I'll be presenting a zone change for 8050 Rosemary Street from agricultural to light intensity industrial to I-1. The zone change would be for the designation from AEG, from agricultural district, to light intensity industrial for that 2.4 acre lot. It is under the comprehensive plan listed as industrial distribution, which allows for light intensity industrial, I-1. And it's also within the Irondale Neighborhood Infrastructure Plan under commercial and industrial. Case history, this lot was annexed from the unincorporated Adams County in 1986. That's when it was designated Zone AG. Current the concurrent cases with the zoning, we currently have a development plan for a 5,300 square feet fuel sales and convenience store, which is currently in the review, a final plat for one lot. So you can see here, the property is bounded by industrial to the on all sides, except to the southwest. We have unincorporated Adams County residential lots, and we have a agricultural lot to the northwest of this lot. It's within the community commercial center area due to the vicinity of prominent intersections of Rosemary Street, East 80th Avenue, Quebec Street, and Highway 2. Is listed in the Irondale plan. It does allow for commercial and industrial uses. It's not the latest aerial. It does have, there was a home on there since 1953. It was demolished last year with the demo permit. It is bounded by Rosemary Street to the west, 80th Avenue to the south, and Highway 2 and BNSF tracks to the southeast. I went out there pretty recently, and this is the current conditions after the demolition of the single-family home. And there was a neighborhood meeting at the Municipal Service Center on June 21st, 2023. There was one member in attendance where discussion for adequate buffering from the residential uses to the north. Little analysis. The lot does meet the I-1 light intensity industrial bulk standards. The proposed zone change has been reviewed by all relevant agencies from the development review team. There's sufficient evidence in the record demonstrates that it does meet the zone change approval criteria in the municipal code section 21-3232. For discussion, we do have the zone change is consistent with the comprehensive plan in the Irondale infrastructure plan. The zone change allows the site to develop as an infill lot. Zone change allows for expansion of public services to the site, and will accommodate for the road widening project that's proposed on Rosemary Street to address the traffic concerns. And as for the section 21-32-33 subsection 5, we do have these approval criteria listed before you. And the applicant is here to present on their behalf.
At this time, I would like to invite the applicant forward to the podium to present. Please state your name and address for the record.
Commissioners, my name is Tyler Carlson. Address is 1873 South Bel Air Street in Denver. Here representing my family. My presentation actually includes not just the rezoning component, but the subdivision plat and the development plan as well. So I excuse my presentation for maybe going beyond the mark, but we'll just get it over with in one shot and then spare you guys the regurgitation later. And we started this journey, well, first of all, I grew up in North Denver. I literally have driven by this property my entire life. And what once was a fairly well-maintained residential home, over the last several years, it turned into quite a blighted eyesore. Lots of equipment and vehicles were stored on the property. The landscaping had gone to hell. It was pretty poor. And so when the property came on the market, it was something that personally I had to try to figure out, because it's the gateway to the Irondale area. This is how I would drive every time I went up to see my family up in North Denver, and it needed to be something different than it was. And so we started with a concept planning effort in actually the summer of 22, so basically 18 months ago. Got support initially from city staff on the concept of rezoning it, of approaching commercial uses with the property, and we actually closed at the end of 2023. And so It's something that we own currently. This is not a speculative project, something that we care deeply about. And the other thing that I think is important to note is as soon as we could, last year, we actually demolished the house. It was important to me to clean up this property as quickly as we could, have a fresh slate, and I think show the neighborhood and the city that we were serious about improving the area. And we spent basically all of last year going through our process with city staff, which has been fantastic. Omar and this team have been great. And we've actually had quite a few meetings with city management and the engineering to figure out the traffic aspect of this piece. As you all probably know, it is a fairly busy intersection. And so one of the important considerations for us moving forward was making some improvements to Rosemary Street to help mitigate some of that congestion at rush hour. And grateful that our partners in this Quick Trip are willing to step up and make those improvements. So grateful again to be here. Maybe Omar, next slide, please, or whoever's driving the magic ship. Omar already talked about the zoning and the fact that this does comply with the comp plan. Next slide. This is the actual subdivision plat. This property was actually never formally subdivided, and so we have to go through a technical subdivision to create a lot because it's now currently in no man's land of legality from a subdivision standpoint. Next slide, please. This is the zoning map, very simple, one lot, one zoning. We initially had talked to staff about I-2 zoning, and ultimately it was decided that I-1 was more appropriate. There's I-2 across the street to the west, but there's I-1 to the north. And in accommodation to the neighbors and just future land planning, we agreed to not downzone it, but take it down to the I-1 category. It's 2.5 acres. And one of the great things about this site is that we have room to do 40% of it as landscaping. That is unheard of in a commercial context to have 40%. And we designed the site so that the majority of that is up along the northern edge adjacent to the residential neighbors. And again, making traffic improvements to Rosemary Street to improve the traffic flow during rush hour. I think it's also important to note that there are no fuel options on Highway 2 from 72nd up to 104th. That's a 5.5 mile stretch. And this is fulfilling a need in the marketplace. And there's also no fresh or prepared food options in Irondale. And you probably already know, Quick Trip is different. It's a quasi-restaurant operation / convenience store. It is not normal. You can get fresh sandwiches, fresh pizza, fresh fruits, all kinds of things. It operates like a small grocery store in many markets that don't have full-service grocery stores. So this is the photo of the house and all the stuff that was out there before we cleaned up the property. Next slide, please. This is where it looks today. We got it cleaned up. I personally mowed these weeds, and it was terrible. I broke a string trimmer. I broke a lawnmower. It was so bad. Anyways, it was rough. But we got it cleaned up. It looks great now. Next slide, please. And this is what it will be. So this is an aerial view. You can see the amount of green space relative to the hardscapes. Next slide, please. Very attractive architecture. Much better than the old house. Next slide, please. Angled view, again, showing the landscaping along Highway 2, along the north, and especially on the corner. It's going to be a beautiful entry to Irondale. There will not be the 4-foot tall weeds anymore. Next slide, please. This is a view, again, from Highway 2. Next slide, please. View from the intersection of Highway 2 and Rosemary, Quebec. Again, beautiful trees and landscaping. View from Rosemary as you come around the corner on the west side. Next slide, please. And a view directly from the west side of the property with 360-degree architecture. Next slide, please. And then the store. Next slide. So a few more slides just to get you hungry. As you know, QT is a little bit different. Next slide, please. They invest heavily in their neighborhoods. They pay real wages to their employees. These are not service workers who just get paid minimum wage. The average store manager's salary is $100,000 a year. That's a 6-figure livable wage in Commerce City. And the reason why they pay is because, as with most things in life, you get what you pay for. If you pay good people to run good stores, you'll have good product, you'll have good service, you'll have good security. If you just cut the bottom line to the bare minimum, you're going to get what you pay for. And I think that's why QT separates itself operationally from all of its competitors. Next slide, please. They get very involved in their communities with donations, fundraisers, and service projects. Next slide, please. And store security is paramount. They have a centralized operations center that continually monitors the safety of the facilities, tracking it 24/7, day and night, and they've got great cooperative relationships in all of their stores with the local law enforcement agencies. Next slide, please. And fresh food, like I said. Next slide. It's just in case you're hungry, it is dinner time. Pizza, next slide, burritos, pretzels, sandwiches, you name it. Again, this is more than just a place to get your Snickers and Red Bull. It is actually a place where you can grab an actual legitimate meal and not feel guilty about it. So with that, I will turn the time back over to Omar. And again, I want to thank him and again, all of staff for working with us on this property and helping us bring about a hopefully much better result for Irondale than it was previously. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson, for the presentation, and Mr. Youssef. Are there any questions from the commissioners for the applicant or staff?
I have a question.
Wait, Mr. Schechter.
I beat you. Yes, I'm wondering, what will the relationship be as far as ownership of the property, the store? So you're not going to be a franchisee. You're going to remain the property owner and then lease it to them on a long-term?
Correct, yeah. So my family will retain ownership on it, and Quick Trip will have a lease on the property.
Sounds kind of like that.
It'll be a long-term ownership. We have
In
no-
one moment, just to frame the questions for what we're analyzing this evening, it's rezoning the property, and I thank the applicant for his very verbose presentation. And the design of the space itself and all of that, correct me, staff, if I'm incorrect, that's also on its a linear path that's with this, as the applicant had stated, that's all being vetted out through city staff and through city planning. So is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, sir. If the zoning is approved, then the plat and development plan would move forward for approval as well.
So
Tonight.
what's in front of us today
Is
is
just
the
very
zone-
preliminary.
It's the zoning case, not necessarily the planning of the parcel and all of that, because that isn't a concurrent development path to this. But they need the zoning to happen to have
Sure.
the facility be built. So, sorry, I should have interjected that.
No, that's cool. Thanks for keeping it on track. I appreciate it. So you do intend to stay owner of the land? Is
Yeah,
that your?
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've grown up my whole life in North Denver and have no
Great.
intention of selling.
So, go ahead, Dennis.
No, please go.
Go ahead.
Are you part of the Craig Carlson family?
The which one?
Craig?
Craig, yeah, Craig is my uncle.
Oh, okay, good.
Clark is my father.
Good man.
Thank you.
Are you involved in the, just to know a little bit about you, and I respect your family tremendously. Are you part of the ownership of the house and big barn at, on Chambers, 1500?
That is one of my cousins and my uncle own that.
I'm always curious about that a little.
But you may remember my development company, Evergreen, is also developing the 58,000 square foot industrial building to the north of here at 88th and Rosemary on the Agazio property. You heard our case last year. So it's kind of fun for me to be involved at both ends of the street, again, trying to improve it and bring great projects to Commerce City.
Well, I'd have to say that you and your family bring a lot of value to our community, and that's important to me, for sure, and to the people in our community. And relative to I-1 is, and this is not to get away from what you were saying to Rob, but are they going to have diesel pumps?
Diesel pumps?
Diesel.
Diesel pumps? For cars.
Yeah, for cars, but not fuel, I mean, not truck.
Okay, so
Separate
that was
pumps.
my question, because, and I don't know, in this process, did the Public Works take a look at that from a traffic pattern and so on? Because the one thing that, I-1 allows is, the big 18-wheelers coming in there, and that's not the corner to have 5 18-wheelers trying to get in and out when a train is going by. And that's my question is.
And I can speak to that a little bit. When we initially were contemplating I-2 zoning, it was, at that point, we were exploring doing separate truck fueling on the property. But once we decided to bring the zoning classification down a notch to I-1, it transitioned to a more traditional non-truck fueling operation. So this will be your typical
Yeah, that was my only question.
car, light-duty truck, not 18-wheelers coming in there.
Has Public Works reviewed this, and are they in support of it?
Engineering has reviewed this proposal, yes.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ingleson.
I was worried about the traffic patterns, and I don't know if I can address this for zoning, but that is a very busy intersection with the train. So what improvements are they going to be doing to Rosemary to help rectify the traffic situation there?
Yeah, that is a great question, and luckily we brought our great traffic engineer with us today to explain to that. He has spent many, many moons working with Public Works on that exact topic because they are very aware, as you know, of the traffic
Plus
there.
the train.
Correct, and the train makes things even more complicated. I've sat behind that dang train too many times, so turn the time over to our good engineer.
Thank you, Commission. Appreciate it. Like was mentioned, we spent a lot of time with engineering going over multiple concepts. I think one thing to mention is that there is a Rosemary widening project that is in development that we are incorporating our project into. So specific to our project, you may have saw on the site plan, we're providing a right turn lane into the site to take traffic off the road as quickly as possible. And then we've provided some additional concepts to try to incorporate improvements with the Rosemary widening plan. So this is happening in conjunction with I believe that plan is approved. But we're trying to be iterative and work with the city to come up with the best solution for that area. The sort of when the train crosses is a little outside the control of like what we can do and what we can't do. Working with the rail is kind of a different animal. But we continue to work with staff on improvements and designs that could help the whole area.
So I know that they were having a widening of Rosemary Street. Is it going to have its own entrance and exit out of there besides the lanes on Rosemary?
I'm sorry, I don't
You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, at our first entrance, it's a right in, right out, and we have a deceleration lane entering.
Okay.
And then the truck turning movements for fuel are for the northern access to sort of keep some separation from that. So with our, sort of physical constraints of the property, we think it's the best configuration to support that. I think one other thing to just mention about the use, since we are talking about the rezoning, is yes, the area is busy, but gas station and convenience store has a significantly high portion of pass-by traffic, meaning traffic that is already on the network that stops here on the way to somewhere else. So we're drawing from traffic that's already out there, as opposed to another use that may be, just brand new trips to the network. Pass-by traffic is something like over 75% of traffic to this area is already out there on the road.
Right. And the only entrance and exit are going to be on Rosemary, right? Yeah.
Correct.
And how are you going to deal with that train going by all the time?
We don't expect a lot of traffic from the train.
Okay, those were all my questions. Thank you.
I guess I'm going to have to speak up because my microphone.
Yeah, mine won't turn
Yeah,
off.
mine's not. Mine's on permanently. You want to borrow mine?
Me too.
Technology is not our friend tonight. So any additional questions from the commissioners? So I just have one follow-up question just on the traffic engineering, because I believe I saw this, and if you can give, since it's the topic at hand now, it was right in right out, is there any concern with people circling back to the intersection at 2 and Rosemary? Like, what would that, if someone was going to pull into this space and go back to the intersection at 2 and Rosemary, what would that action be?
So the site has two access points. The southern one is a right in, right out, but the northern one is full movement.
Okay.
So to circulate around, you would circulate through the site and come back down to the south.
Thank you. Yeah, my tablet died as well, so I couldn't.
Fair enough.
I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
that. So yeah, thank you for your answer.
Absolutely.
All right. Any additional questions? All right, seeing none. Do any members of the public wish to provide comments on this case? Seeing none, is there anyone attending virtually that wishes to speak?
No, sir.
As there are none, at this time, I will close the public hearing for this case. And can I have a motion?
I move that the planning commission enter a finding that the requested zone change for the property located at 8050 Rosemary Street, contained in case Z993-24, meets the criteria of the Land Development Code, and based upon such finding, recommend that the city council approve the zone change.
Is there a second? So we have a motion by Commissioner Japp and a second by Commissioner Ingleson. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, hopefully this works, please open electronic voting. And yes, it works. The motion passes 5 yeses, 0 no's, 0 abstain. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Riggs and the applicant team, and congratulations on your case. All right. As it is 8:15, just checking with the commission, as we have a couple other items ahead of us, do we need a 5-minute bio break? Are we okay to proceed?
We could use a 5-minute. I know that I could.
Hearing that we have one, we will take a 5-minute recess. What is the formal motion that I need to continue the meeting? Mr. Hayter?
You can just resume your meeting, call the meeting back to order. Just call
Meeting
it back to order.
Here, here. Let's see. The commission will now hear a presentation from the on the economic strategic plan.
All right, good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Elliot Weiss. Thank you for having me, commissioners. I will not promise, even though we are the last substantive agenda item, to keep it quick, because tonight is about hearing from you, so I want to give you ample time for feedback on this project, the Economic Development Strategic Plan. I work for a company called Community Attributes, Inc. We are headquartered in Seattle, but with a local Denver office here, and I'm joined by my colleague from CAI, Courtney Sina. Both of us are here in the Denver office, and as I said, we're your consultant for this economic development strategy. I've got just a few slides to update you on where we're at in the process. We were at a meeting with you virtually in early January, so there's a little bit of a status update based on progress since then. But then I have just a few discussion questions that I'd like to put to you as a group and as individuals to hear your perspective as we work toward the content of this strategic plan. So by way of agenda, we have this brief project update, a focus group discussion, and then I have one slide at the end on next steps just to let you know where we're going. Work began on this project in 2023. We drafted an outreach and engagement plan, which in subsequent months we've been executing against. We drafted a landscape assessment and identified preliminary findings. That's a largely data-driven assessment of demographic and economic trends affecting opportunities and challenges for Commerce City's economy. We had listening sessions, which were essentially one-on-one interviews with city council members and the city manager. And we put out a public survey that garnered around 210 responses and which just closed within the last couple of weeks. That public survey was distributed through many of your partner economic development organizations. I think we sent unique links to 11 or 12 different organizations to try to get broad distribution. It was, of course, available in English and Spanish, and we're in the process of analyzing the results of the survey now. We are working toward a draft vision statement and goals. The slide says February 2024. We needed the survey to close before we could finalize that work, so that's technically still ongoing. The landscape assessment will be revised based on comments from city staff, and we will release a SWOT analysis and fact sheet to follow up on those preliminary findings this month in March. And then an interim draft of strategies and actions will follow in April, and a final draft tentatively scheduled for May of this year. So we're sort of midstream in this process. We will have a formal presentation of the draft to City Council in April or May, depending on when the draft is available and other considerations such as Council's meeting schedule. We've been having recently, it's not on the slide, but a number of public listening sessions. Some of you have attended them, and we're very appreciative of that. We had 3 in the month of February. One was virtual during the daytime. One was at Bison Ridge Recreation Center. The other was at Eagle Point Recreation Center. Each of those 3 covered the same content because we were simply trying to make that content available in different parts of the city and at different times or via different media. We will be having 3 more according to the same format in the month of March, beginning actually this Thursday, 2 days from now at Bison Ridge, and then again virtually and toward the end of the month of March at Eagle Point as we refine the content that we've been developing. This is a little bit more detail on some of that. I just mentioned the listening sessions. Those are marked as complete on here. I mentioned the organizations that we reached out to help distribute your survey. You see those in bullets here. They include NAOP, the city itself using city social media channels, the Chamber of Commerce, Adelante, Cultivando, and others. We have advisory group meetings. We've had 1 so far. The second of those is scheduled again for this Thursday, busy week for this project, but we have one this Thursday with city staff from various departments just to make sure we're getting a broad perspective or a perspective that isn't limited to economic development staff. And I mentioned the 3 forthcoming in-person studios here in the month of March. This is a focus group format with you, the Planning Commission. This will be one of 5 focus groups. I list them as in progress because technically we're kicking this effort off tonight. This will be one of 5, and you are the first. The remaining focus groups, we've not determined who those will be with yet. We're still, as I said, processing survey results and things of that nature, but we will determine that during the month of March, and we'll get those scheduled for either the end of the month or early in April. So that does it for a brief project update. I will pause here in case you have any questions about where we're at in the process.
I thought that was a great presentation out at Bison Ridge. We chatted a little bit
We did.
afterwards. It wasn't as well attended as I had hoped. I noticed that on the distribution here, you have JR listed you through the BREDAC. I was on BREDAC, and I've not received anything from him, and I think he monitors the next door, and I am not a social media person, but my wife hasn't seen that. I would hope that we get more exposure out there in the community, because there's a lot of opinions. and I don't know, and this was some of the problem with the folks that were working on the comprehensive plan as well. Just because you reach out doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a broad enough exposure back. Does that make sense to you? So if it means, sending, notebooks, postcards or whatever it does, I would hope that we go above and beyond trying to get ample input especially from both major different areas, because as you and I talked, the problems and the solutions are different from Core City to Reunion. And I think that's important to hear all those people, a lot of input if we possibly can. So, and I commend you on your direction and what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Commissioner. We're aligned there completely. We want to cast the broadest net possible. We are hoping that we can continue to engage these partners and others. If there are others that we should be engaging, we're open to suggestions to make sure that we are giving everyone the best possible chance to not just participate, but at least be aware of what's going on so that they can determine whether or not it's important enough to them to participate. I think we've gotten a lot of good responses to the survey. We have not had as good of attendance in person, but that's something that we're working to fix for these March meetings. And we certainly hope that we have a few more attendees in place. But always open to suggestions, not just in terms of who we should be reaching out to, but anybody else that can amplify our message. If there's somebody out there that can help us get the word out and that has some sway with the community, then we're all ears. Okay. So this is our chance to hear from you. As I said, it's probably the case that if I am talking more than you all are, then we're not getting what we need to out of this meeting. Not to put you all on the spot, but we start with a high-level question. At a high level, what should Commerce City's economy look like in a decade or in 2 decades? And just as context for this question, I will just say we usually structure these economic development strategic plans hierarchically, beginning with a vision for Commerce City's future economy, goals, of which you will only have a few, could be 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 at the most, but you don't want to spread your resources too thin. What we call strategies, which are just approaches to reaching or effectuating the goal, and then actions, which are the most tangible or tactical aspects of the plan. Those are things that could readily translate into a work plan item for staff over the coming couple of years. So right now, we're not so much in the weeds looking at strategies and actions, although we're certainly getting there. We're rapidly approaching that point with these meetings in March. We're sort of at the vision and goals level, and we've gotten enough feedback to have identified several potential goals, but we're trying to identify which of those are the most important and how do they relate to this broader vision, this unifying vision that holds all of the content of the strategic plan together. So with that in mind, this question is very much vision-oriented.
Well, I can speak to that a little bit because I was kind of the burr under the saddle, I think they said, with the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan it should be built in the same way that you described what you're doing. One of the important things is I hope that we get feedback of what needs to be in the comp plan in order to make the things that you suggest work. And a specific example that I give is in the proposed comp plan, which we didn't agree to, they have the northern range, for the most part, all residential. And in that analysis or that guideline, they didn't allow flex buildings as an example. And a flex building is a good shell to put a lot of jobs, which is economic development. And so we need to know the kinds of things that are going to make your programs work. Like, we have to have the opportunity to put some flex buildings up there as an example and other kinds of things so that we can make the economic parts work, because it's all part of the puzzle.
What kind of, at what level of abstraction are you interested in hearing right now? So I guess you mentioned vision, which would be like, in other words, what might we imagine a future Commerce City being like as far as economic development? Is that what you're saying?
For this first question, that's exactly what we're looking for. We're asking you to be aspirational and to describe what it would look like if Commerce City realized your aspirations for its economy in 10 or 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some level of abstraction with this question. The subsequent questions get a little bit more tangible.
Okay.
But for now, we're very comfortable with a little bit of abstraction.
So I would, 2 points, and you highlighted in your last presentation in January, where it's more tax base is in the city than going out to the city. Because if you just look to even Grand Valley Ranch to the south, that it's taken 20 some odd years to develop. Now they're building big box stores. Costco, Target might come online, and that's there. It would be great, regardless of where in the city, if those attributes were here. But then my profession, I'm an architect, and trying to get people to come out, like I'm on the local advisory committee for the AIA, and I was trying to drum up support to come to the Greyhound Park, the urban renewal, and the feedback that I was getting, that's kind of out of the center core of Denver, that a lot of the larger firms, they're wanting to focus their efforts towards the central core, towards Denver. But to have this as a viable area, not necessarily to compete with Denver, but to be its own city, to support itself, because I think that's the vision of the city, is a city for a lifetime. But that was my answer when I came onto the Planning Commission. It wasn't necessarily for my lifetime, but for the lifetime for the city. So I would hope that the city would be a sustainable entity of its own, that we're not supporting other municipalities.
Well, that brings up a really good point that he brought up. He said that people are attracted to the core city, but I've had a commercial mortgage company for 25 years. And quite frankly, you can't get a downtown office building financed right now because those jobs actually are dissipating. Part of them are going to remote work, people in their homes and their computers, but part of them, a good part of them, are going to suburban areas with a smaller office building. So they have 3 or 4 office buildings because they're realizing that the ideas that come out from the conversations around a water cooler are still important, and you don't get that with remote work. And so those are the kinds of visions that I have, is what's it going to take to bring jobs into the community? So number one. And number two, if we're looking at 20 years, we need to start thinking about the area that's undeveloped north of the airport. And again, the comp plan didn't really address that very well at this point. I hope it does ultimately. But the fact of the matter is, we can bring jobs in there. You can't build houses because they're in the flight path. But I would love, there's a lot of things that we could employ people on that ground that will bring jobs. And once you have jobs in the community where people don't have to drive 45 minutes to work, 45 minutes back, now they can drive less, they have more money, and they have time to go to the restaurants that will come to this place. That's how you get restaurants in this, is to bring the jobs in the community, as you know. And so I think we need to make sure that we're looking at the possibilities and what kinds of things we need to do to develop north of the airport from an economic standpoint.
Down here in the core city, they have retail, they have industrial, they have commercial, they have residential, they have it all. They have 6 grocery stores, they have everything. And up there is mainly residential, and I think what needs to happen is it needs to be more balanced between the two sides of the city. So I think you need to have more commercial retail up on that side to help balance the city. I think it's very heavily weighted.
I'm going to tag on what Dennis said and Garrett as well. As I envision we have to get out of the mode in Commerce City, particularly the northern range, of being a bedroom community, you know, a commuter space. Everybody there's 30,000 some or whatever, you know, the population is up there now. And I would be willing to bet that 98% of them drive somewhere else every morning to go to work.
Right.
And we have to get out of the mindset. I'm one of those that drives to downtown Denver every day. And so we have to get out of the mindset of being a bedroom community. We have to, as Dennis said, if we don't have the jobs up there that are holding the population in that area for Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, there's not going to be any substantial development. And so I think the mindset really needs to be is getting out of that bedroom community type area where we're currently in.
And I think I've heard this numerous times to dovetail onto what we're all saying. But another level to that is the, I don't want to use the word stigma, but that's what comes to my mind of Suncor and the industrial core of the city. And that's the moniker of what I think most people in the metro area, when they hear Commerce City, I still think that that's how they view Commerce City. It's that view of it. So it would be, and I know that's what City Council's been working on, that's what the comprehensive plan is trying to say, but it's the rubber meeting of the road that we're beyond Suncor, that Suncor isn't Commerce City and Commerce City isn't Suncor, that we're more than just that. And I know there's the whole, that we have to fight because the arsenal is there and that's not going anywhere, and that's one of the big, you know, to the point of having the divisions between the north and the south, and there's just this natural landlocked, whatever, 120 square miles that can't ever be developed, and it's, you know, natural barriers of the railroad, all of that. But it's just getting beyond Commerce City is this industrial hub, that we're more than that.
Yeah, and to kind of tag on to what he said, is it 470 that goes through Commerce City there, that from 25 down to 70? That represents, you know, that with the refinery is what 90% of the people see Commerce City is. And it's a lot different than that. So image is part of the problem. Additionally, from an economic standpoint, we have, I don't know, Jennifer, what do we have, 7 different ULAs? Urban and Land Renewals? Urban Renewal? Yeah. Well, we're supposed to know that. That's our, I think we have. It's been a long night. I think we have 7, and those, you know, some of those have been urban land locations for decades. That's an opportunity that we can do something to bring the right kind of jobs into the South End. You know, we all talk, because most of us, or many of us live in the North End, we talk about the North End a lot. But the South End has some infill possibilities that are fantastic if we get the right businesses in there. You know, because a lot of those people down south work outside of Commerce City as well. It's also, to a degree, a bedroom community from an employment standpoint.
There's 5 URAs.
Okay.
I have a couple comments. I would like to see, and maybe this is happening, but I'd like to see, like in the future, real strong small business entrepreneur kind of friendliness. And to me, it kind of comes down to the basics, just like the condition of the roads. And so I have a tiny anecdote. Last year, I learned how to repair furniture and do woodworking. And so I'm driving out to the middle of nowhere and picking up like some vintage chest for free, and it's in the back of my Subaru. And coming back to Reunion to work on it in my garage, I'm driving down Tower between 120th and 104th, which was a huge mistake because I'm hearing this piece of vintage furniture just go bam, 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 bam. Like this road is just in no good condition to transport anything you care about. And I was like kind of shocked to see, oh, this isn't just unimproved county road. This is actually a Commerce City street. So like that. And then also as far as condition of roads, I think that there's a lot of history here, but like we have the Bison Ridge Rec Center, which actually doesn't have any good roads or bicycle paths or walkways to it. It's kind of all alone. It's actually separated from the biggest residential area, which is Reunion proper. People to go up to 120th, cross 76, cross the highway again, and then they're back at Bison Ridge. And I feel like these kind of things should be built into the planning and the funding and maintenance of them. Along with small business entrepreneur friendly would be actual federal USPS locations somewhere within like a half-hour drive. You know, I know this is a different government there, but yeah, shipping locations. I have like a couple more things. Like another one is that, you know, my background's law, so like I'm used to thinking of landlord tenant. These are two sides, and we're really good about programs helping tenants understand their rights and how to be good tenants. But I think the other half is helping teaching people how to be good landlords and how to become a landlord. And this is part of how people move up in our society, how to begin to own property. And I think this is a huge area that actually could improve equity across the board, but also help people move up in the ladder that we have here in the US. So again, this kind of like helping people are super entrepreneurial in Reunion. I see it all over, but like just kind of supporting that. A final thing, and this is really radical. I don't know if this is going to work here, but in Portland, where I'm from, and in Westminster, they have this mixed use residential and commercial zoning. And so in Westminster, you know, where that fancy hipster cinema is, I forget what it's called. You know, the one that we have here in Denver. Well, anyhow, so they have commercial below. It's all apartments above. And what Portland has found is that this actually reduces crime because 10 p.m. there are people walking around, looking around. It's not just a vacant downtown. So I think being open to these kind of things that can increase urban density, make more use of the roads and infrastructure we've already built. Maybe that's a possibility that would work well for certain areas in town. I don't know. That's what I got.
That's great. Any other comments on this prompt? All right, I'll move us on. From your perspective, which of the following goals are most important and which are least important? And I will just say, at the public open house, the listening sessions that we had in February, we offered these same choices. Almost all of them ranked rather high. And so I will preface this by saying you got to make some tough choices. And we're not necessarily looking for a top 3 or a top 5. There's not a cutoff, but you don't want to spread your resources too thin, or you might not make much progress on any of these. And the last bullet here, any others, we may have missed something. So this is based on what we've been learning about Commerce City, what we've been hearing so far, preliminary assessment of the survey results. We came up with high-functioning economic development ecosystem, strong community identity, leveraging key development sites, retail, amenities, and family-oriented spaces, and economic identity and target clusters, housing affordability and cost of living, workforce training and living wage jobs, infrastructure investments such as in transportation or parks, environmental sustainability. And one last note of context before I let you all fire away is we very much believe, just philosophically, that economic development starts foundationally with being a good place to live. Ultimately, it's much easier to get a CEO to commit to growing his or her company's presence in a community that they want to live in and where there's less friction for them to attract talented workers. And so if some of this seems like it's not pure economic development, it's true that it's not necessarily business recruitment. That's part of economic development. But some of these community development concerns are also, I think, core to attaining the future that you all just described on that last slide. So with that, most important, least important from this list, or with any others that might be top of mind for you?
You've already got one of the most important things on there is the infrastructure, and he talked about it. 112th from Chambers over to the Bison Ridge Rec Center has been discussed for 14 years that I'm aware of. The last time we did the comp plan, that was brought up, and the council at that point said, well, we don't have the money, and nothing has changed. You can't have a teenager ride their bicycle from their home to the rec center in this community, and that's a disaster. And that's part of infrastructure will make this a better community to live, work, and play in.
I would follow that up. In reading some of these, it's almost like it's a cause and effect, is the way that I'm interpreting some of these. That if you had retail amenities, family-oriented spaces, if you were building things, it would generate tax base, which would lead to more infrastructure, which would in turn develop a strong community identity. So it would be developing things that would, to have a tax base here, to build a sustainable community, which will reinforce its own identity.
And along what he said, if you have employment in the North Range, the residential tax base will go down. And taxes up north are one of the biggest problems that everybody has because of the metro districts and all of this kind of stuff. You can take, and I did this analysis here a couple months ago, the same priced house of, I think I used a $380,000 house in the North Range, and the core city has a difference of $400 a month in taxes that they pay. That's $5,000 a year, and that's what people are complaining about up north, because we don't have any jobs up there, and we have to pay for our own infrastructure.
I think that I would be remiss without saying this, and I know that it's probably not the right forum, and I'm just going to say that, but so that any, folks that hear this meeting or let's watch the video afterwards, is the infrastructure investment has to be one of the very top priorities, but it cannot be on the backs of just a small subset of citizens. We cannot continue to rely in this city on metro districts to fund all of the infrastructure for this city. That's just not feasible, and it's not possible. For example, 120th in Chambers, 104th in Chambers, 112th in Chambers to the rec center was going to be on the backs of the metro district that is at 104th and Tower. And all of the folks in the Northern Range were going to benefit from it, but one metro district was going to pay for it, and we can't do that. in this city anymore. So infrastructure investments has to be one of the most important, but in that context, the city has to find another way to finance it.
And then to another point, and Dennis touched on this a little bit, I've heard this previously, but and I think you even mentioned it in a statement, but being an innovation hub. So I know people, and we're coming from this with our experiences of where we've gotten to this point here, but it's thinking outside of the box. So if it was not just, like I've heard the idea of community colleges or whatever, if there was some other training, not necessarily vocational training, some other, like we became, I don't know, it was the hemp processing to make paper. Like that's the new wave, whatever it would be. We're making widgets in the future. But that Commerce City was the innovation hub as we move away from industries that are here now to things that none of us have even realized to make all of that, the tax base stay here. But it's being more forward-thinking than just applying the way that we rationalize it, that this is the current condition because 20 years from now, this is going to be a different thing.
Okay, now he got me started. Community college.
Sorry, guys.
I actually, Joe Garcia is the head of the community college system in Colorado. He is an acquaintance of mine. I was president of the board of trustees for Pikes Peak Community College for 11 years. We built 2 new campuses without state help, but it's because we had some developers and some people that really, in the community, that really carried the flag, and it was needed and useful. We brought in literally thousands of jobs in Colorado Springs. That can be done here. The thing that we need to know is what are the skill sets of the people in the community, and what are the skill sets that are needed in the jobs that are close. We could support a community college in this, in the Reunion area with all of the thousands of jobs that are across the street at the airport, because there are all kinds of jobs. Maintenance jobs for planes, maintenance jobs for equipment, restaurant jobs, cleaning jobs, there's thousands, tons of office jobs. Why don't we have, and as soon as you put a college in, this is economics 101. As soon as you put a college in the community, now all of a sudden other supportive services come in. It's your primary jobs versus your secondary jobs. When you teach people the primary jobs, the secondary jobs just automatically will find you because they'll benefit as well.
I would add an any other on this list, I think, and I think that one of the goals that I think we should find most important is to expand healthcare operations in a site of the community this size that has no hospital. Our closest hospital in either direction is, from where we're sitting right now, is at least 15 to 20 minutes is unacceptable. And our community really should strive to get some sort of medical facility inside of the city boundaries.
Those are big dreams.
And one last thought, just because this triggered me, is so why are things like the Pepsi plant, why is that being built on the other side of 470 instead of on the Commerce City side of 470?
Or the battery plant.
Why is United building a big training facility on that side of Pena instead of on this side of Pena? Because that's a huge tax base. They're building a massive, they're moving a lot of that from Chicago here. So why
That's right. Same with the battery plant.
Why is that in Brighton and not, that's like there's these other industries are to the point, that's why I was saying about the innovation hub. So similar to what they're trying to foster at the Stead School. I know we're all, but it's that idea of connecting how we're on the fringe of agrarian life, agriculture, and maybe that's what whatever. It's just, it's taking the germ of that idea and expanding on it.
There's another thing that's happening in many of the tech communities in the country, and that is how do we support remote jobs? Because they need the water cooler occasionally. Do we put a business center in? Do we put, what do we need to do to help those, 20% of the employees now work at least partially from home? And how do we get the services that they normally would use when they used to drive downtown Denver, but now they're here 2 or 3 days a week? And that's really cutting edge, not only technology, but practical application of physical things, spaces, tools, and so on.
I think I have a slightly different tack on one or two things. As far as, let me see, environmental sustainability is here. I think about environmental health. We talk about, well, you talked about the this reputation we have. We have Suncor as reputation for pollution and might be a dangerous place. I believe that we should have a a statutory bubble around Commerce City. So wherever you live in Commerce City, it is safe and healthy, and the streets are lit, and the streets don't have potholes. And a lot of that isn't very, glamorous, but I feel like that would be an amazing just guarantee. Wherever you live, it's safe, the air is safe to breathe. On the other hand, for housing affordability, I think it's okay to have houses that are close to train tracks and near noisy factories, because myself, as a first-time home buyer like I just was, I would have been happy to find anything I could afford. And it's okay. Some people are fine with noise, and you need a variety of housing stock, if you ask me. So there's a difference between being next to a commercial spot that has bright lights at night versus the air is unsafe. So having these kind of guarantees, maybe that could have some kind of effect on this negative stigma, I think someone mentioned.
To the answer to your question of any others, I would put education facilities. I think that's important to our community. And health, education and health that really aren't there.
Any other comments on this one?
Well, I'd like to reply about taxes. So I'm not an expert, and I'm just gonna say I'm not so sold on the idea that we pay extreme taxes, because I live in Reunion, real close to a coffee shop. I only pay $35 a month, I think it is, for the HOA, which is ridiculously cheap. So I feel well, okay, when I would have been paying $200 or $300 a month in HOA fees. I don't know, and maybe there's a tax benefit to taxes, but that's just an off-the-cuff observation. I'm not sure. I think it'd be very interesting to see an actual in-depth analysis of that. What would a house at $400,000 or $500,000 be somewhere else in the city that had the same amenities with pools, et cetera, and large HOA fees? That's just where I'm coming from.
I'm happy to discuss that with you offline as the president of a metro district.
Right.
Okay. What specific industry sectors should Commerce City target? Are there any specific businesses that you think are missing in Commerce City? We've touched on the industry sectors a little bit. There may be a few more that haven't been spoken to yet. I'm sure you all have heard from other residents and can speak from your own experience as residents about specific businesses that appear to be missing. So we're getting, I said we'd get increasingly tangible. We're there now.
I'm not sure that I have recommendations, but some of our council people are adverse to industrial, especially heavy industrial. But the fact of the matter is we have land that is less expensive than most other infill land in the Front Range, and we have the transportation that is industrial based, And that can be a source of a foundation for jobs. And I would encourage us not to shy away from industrial and transportation services like some people in our community would like. You know, we're probably never going to be a Highlands Ranch.
I'll just reiterate I really feel strongly that the healthcare sector is woefully missing from Commerce City. So if you want to ask me which industry sector, it's healthcare, not just doctor's office and dentist's office, but an actual acute care facility. Or, you know, let's even start small with some sort of ambulatory care facility or, you know, surgical center. But there should be some sort of healthcare here that our residents don't have to drive to University Hospital, to North Suburban, or to Platte Valley, or the nearest closest to the south would be Rose. Those facilities are just far too far for a community this size.
And Deb touched on this earlier, and we heard some echoes of it during one of the cases tonight, is people are having to leave, especially on the North Range, because the South Range, or the south portion of the city core, there's more services. The north end, to echo what Roger is saying, is having to drive multiple miles for services that aren't necessarily there. Because that's always the complaint. Just talking about the social media aspect, is that I saw a post the other day that there was a businessman that he was looking to open a business here. There's just not necessarily just rooftops, but there wasn't enough other density of other businesses to necessitate him to, he wants to open a business here because he lives here, but he's commuting to the other side of the city to Westminster for his business. It's just, yeah,
Primary and secondary job.
we're at a cart before the horse moment. We have a very, very heavy cart with no horse.
One other thing, I know one of the council people had a restaurant that was interested in building a restaurant here in the North Range. And their excuse for not ultimately doing it, although they did have interest for a long time, was the fees and the development fees and the cost of getting in and getting it done. And if that's a part of the problem, then that certainly should be addressed, because that's an economic thing. You know, when we talk about doing land use, I would like to see ED always come to us and say, this is how it affects our economics in the community, you know? Is it the right thing to increase the size of the recovery plant, I mean the
Comprehensive plan.
plant, you know? How does that, is it going to add jobs? You know, what do they pay? Is it the right thing to do for the community from an economic standpoint? And that interaction with other parts of the city and other parts of the employment sector, I think, is absolutely key, you know? The reason a small business doesn't want to come in is because the big businesses aren't here keeping the people in the community. You're never going to get a restaurant here if they can't make money. And the way to make money is to keep the people in the community. Beat that horse to death.
All right, I know it's getting late. Any other comments here before I move on? I think we've just got 2 slides left, so.
Thank you for allowing us the input, I think.
This one may not generate any responses. Wanted to provide an opportunity for you to contribute anything that you felt like those 3 questions didn't allow you to cover. And then final slide will be that I close on a few next steps, so. Okay. So in terms of next steps, I spoke to most of these, and I am happy to follow up with specific dates and times if that is helpful. Most of this information is available on the city's website and is being distributed through the city's social media channels. But we do have the advisory committee meeting that I mentioned on this Thursday, March 7th, additional public listening sessions, one at Bison Ridge, one at Eagle Point, one virtual, the first of which is at Bison Ridge, again, this Thursday, March 7th at 6 p.m. Now, the last session, I should note, was more of an open house format. You could come and go at your leisure, spend 15 minutes or spend the full 2 hours. This one, actually, we are asking folks to attend at 6 p.m. There will be a brief formal presentation covering some of the content that we covered tonight, and then there will be small group activities. So just if you're talking to any residents in the community who are interested in participating, know that we are asking folks to be there at 6 p.m. We are moving toward draft vision and goals. We're very nearly there. And over the rest of the month and into April, we'll be talking about strategies, actions, and implementation. So I think you'll be seeing a lot of action on this project in March. Again, we've only got a few months here to get to a full draft, so it's going to be busy. There's a lot of work ahead, but it's an exciting time because we're starting to see some of these concepts come together. So with that, I would just say thank you for the input. We really appreciate it. And you can always reach out to us at any time if you have any other feedback.
Are you aware of Cronky's efforts or working with, I think it's ULI, right?
NIOP.
Or one of the universities on development of their area down around the Sporting Goods Park?
I was at a ULI event in Rhino before coming to this meeting tonight, and I heard about it at the ULI meeting. So that was the first I had heard about it. I'm aware now. In fact, I spoke to someone who's serving as a professional advisor to one of the teams working on this particular competition. I very much look forward to hearing more about it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weeks, for your presentation. All right. So moving to commission business, I believe we have one item to discuss. There may be others, but we need a volunteer or a nomination to replace Andrew on the, sorry, I'm finding it on the, for the,
The Comprehensive Plan Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Hayter. It's getting late. Brain's a little jello. And Roger, we had heard through the grapevine last time that you may be interested in that position. Is that,
Rumors.
was that rumors or is there some?
Rumor. No.
Not true. It's
No, I'm happy to do that.
All right, so we need a motion and a second.
I nominate Roger.
Is there a second?
Do what? Be the chairperson?
No, to sit on that subcommittee for the comprehensive plan.
Oh, okay.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
I second.
Yeah, second.
All right. Can we have a voice vote?
Commissioner Bitlaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Japp?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggleston?
Yes.
Commissioner Kmack?
Well, since Roger said yes, yes.
And Commissioner Schick?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0. Is there any other commission business?
Well, I have a couple things. Is it possible for us to get the proposed minutes within, by the end of the week or within, 3 to 5 business days rather than a month late and sometimes later?
So the minutes are usually drafted within a week or so after the meeting. We just don't usually send them out until we're sending out the rest of the packet.
Remember, we report to the council direct, and I'd like to see them by the end of the week on a Tuesday, personally. And obviously, they're not approved, but, we can make some of the changes that in the past, it's taken us a month or 2 months, we have a change and then we have to wait to the next meeting before they're done right, and then we miss a meeting. And I would just like to personally have the commitment that we get them by, you know, the Friday after the meeting or the next Monday at the latest.
Sure, and I'll defer to my superiors on figuring out if that's something that we want to do moving forward, but
I will say, I was in attendance at last night's city council meeting, and there was, I think, a little bit of frustration with city council with not knowing what had happened at the last planning commission, because they didn't have even draft minutes, because they hadn't been to you to submit yet. So I think it's a concern that went onto the city manager's radar last night. And I'll try to follow up on that too, to see what we can get to you on an earlier basis. Because I think it's something that they're going to want to have as well for, especially with the CUP case, the zoning case, and things that you heard tonight, that you might not have an opportunity to see those minutes before it goes to council. So we'll try to work through that.
Yeah, I
internally.
looked at that. I watched part of that meeting also, Matt. Why didn't they have our recommendations, you know, for the meeting last night?
So they actually have the recommendation. The draft minutes were just left out on accident. They're typically in there in the packet. They just were not included in the packet. So that will be amended for the item that got continued. And these minutes will be included. But going forward, we can definitely get them to you a little bit earlier so you can look at them before we attach them. There'll still be a draft in a lot of cases because you haven't met again yet. But we can definitely get them to you earlier so you can make changes or clarifications.
Oh, yeah, because we've had to make changes on things that were just oversights, you know, and you fix them. We don't have to have a meeting to fix a typo. You know? The last big one was when Mr. Douglas was up here and he wasn't, you know, his vote wasn't recorded, and we had to wait a month to fix the minutes before it was official. So I would like to ask you, please get the minutes to us by, you know, Friday, following the meeting, or Monday at the very latest. Proposed minutes.
Anything else?
I just want to say thank you to those staff members that are here now at nearing 9:30, and they were here nearing 11 o'clock last night as I was watching the entire meeting as well. So thank you for sticking in and staying with it. Hopefully they don't make you come in until noon tomorrow.
I second Commissioner Jaff's sentiments.
Amen.
Anything else? Is there any attorney business to discuss at this time?
No.
Did you make it shorter?
And is there any staff business to discuss at this time?
Super quickly, just updates on your council items from the last meeting. It sounds like you all will be aware. The zoning for 6601 Colorado was continued to March 18th, and the CUP for the water district, water treatment facility was approved.
And then my last question is, are we slated to have a meeting next month?
I don't know that for a fact, most likely.
Okay.
There was so much on tonight.
Yes, tonight was very verbose.
But I would expect so.
Okay, thank you. The time is now 9:17, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.